I'm a dude, and I'm inviting you to join me on a podcast about brews.
Does that include stouts?
Yes, of course it includes stouts. Like I was saying, join us every Saturday on the journey into...
Wait a minute. Do you guys do anything about like IPAs?
Yes,
Stuff like that?
Yes, we do IPAs.
Okay.
Yes. Anyway, join us on the Journey into Comics Network for Brews with Dudes.
Whoa, hey, have you guys ever... Do you care if I bring some Zima on?
Yes, I care if you bring Zima. Zima doesn't count. Zima's... Dr. Dongo. Anyway, join us every Saturday for a podcast that delves into the craft brew world.
The following
Journey into Comics.
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 Network.
Production.
Hey, this is Josh Richmond, and you are listening to the Voice of Survival podcast, exclusively on the Journey into Comics Network.
You're listening to the Voice of Survival podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Nate Phillips.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Voice of Survival podcast. As the introduction said, I am your host, Nate. And today joining me, absolutely no one. We're going to do something a little bit different today, guys. We did one of these in Season 1. We're going to do one of these in Season 2. Season 1 was a different kind of retrospective. We looked back at a very specific moment, which was kind of like the birth of me podcasting and the start of what eventually became the Journey into Comics Network. Now, today, I have planned something really cool. We had a guest lined up. Shit happens, man. It's life, you know, and you got to think on your feet. And that's what I've always tried to do on the network, is just roll with what punches we're given and go from there. Because, you know, you're never screwed as far as releasing an episode. You can always do or talk about something. So I thought about it, and Sarah and V were like, why don't you just do an episode where you, like, look back at Season 1 and some of the things that happened and, like, some of your better episodes. And I thought, oh, shit, that's cool. And then I wanted to kind of be even a little bit more elite about it and think about how do I want to curate this to make it more special. And my first thought was just do some of the best ones. And I kind of, like, started downloading, like, 5 different ones from across Season 1 that were different milestone episodes. You could say they were my best. I don't know. That's subjective, I guess. But they were some of my favorites. And then I thought, no, you know what? I'm going to do the personal one first. So, like, family, the people that are absolutely the tightest, closer than me, closer than, you know, essentially my core. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a look back at episode 1 of the Voice of Survival podcast featuring Sara VanLaningham. And you'll hear me and her discussing her life and journey and things she's been going through. And, you know, it's going to be a nice look back at where we kind of started the show with. You know, that first show was a test. I wasn't sure how the Voice of Survival would go. I didn't realize it would go 2 seasons, or I would get the guests I ended up getting. It was really just like, I want to do this show. I want to interview people and ask interesting questions. Let's see what happens. So the next thing you're going to hear is going to be episode 5 of the Voice of Survival, featuring Veronica Evans and her journey as well, and just discussing what happened in her life and where, you know, her love for music came and things of that nature. It's also a very music heavy episode too, I will note. And then to round out the 3 that we're going to do this week for this specific special, I'm going to be pulling back the archives and looking at the interview I did with Sarah's sister on episode 13 of The Voice of Survival with Sandy VanLaningham. And, you know, all 3 of these interviews have different qualities that I absolutely love. These 3 ladies have a very special place in my heart and in my life. You know, I mean, just genuinely we are all bonded. So it is really fun for me to kind of get to sit back, look at what we've done, look at the past season of The Voice of Survival, and then just see what's coming next, because I have a couple things I can divulge this week, as well as far as upcoming guests and some of the things we have going on, who we have planned on being on today, and one of that things of that nature. So without further ado, right now you're going to hear a little brief music. It's usually the outro music of the show. It's going to actually just bridge us into the first segment with Sara. So I will let that version of me take it away now. You had a little bit of success, and that's whatever the fuck that word means. It doesn't matter. You had a really awesome thing happen in your life where you were in a place in your life where you were latching onto some music really hard, and you made the decision to cover a Machine Head song. And, I want you to kind of talk about that now for a minute, because that's going to kind of fill people in to where we are with this punk rock piano thing. With the Machine Head thing, I need to ask. I know the story, but I want you to tell our listeners, you decided to cover Darkness Within, and then a very strange string of events happens. So in arranging a song, that's like a really fucking hard song, man. That you did. So I want to know what goes through your head. How do you do it? How do you piece it together? Now, you don't have to get into the minutia, that's a little Easter egg of what you do, but let's talk about Machine Head for a minute, and when that started. You fucking, man, I remember you started playing Darkness Within on piano a little bit, like it was in the beginning. What was going on then? What do you do to go through a song like that?
Well, now I do things a lot differently, actually, than I did then, as far as the process is concerned. The whole idea of covering rock and pop and all of that business it actually started mostly with Jason Ellis' show, if we're going to wind back the clock to The Woodsman. That was the first one that I ever did. I had never covered a song like that before, and I guess we can talk about that a different time. You asked me about Machine Head.
No, I mean,
but,
by all means, please start with Jason Ellis' show. I don't mind. People can totally know the story. It's well worth it to know kind of your journey. It's weird because I'm a passenger in the journey, so I've been just along for the ride, But now I'm starting to have my own little journey into comics. That's another Easter egg there. But for real, though, let's go back. Let's talk Jason Ellis and build to the Machine Head thing, because you're right. That is really where Walk Among Us starts in a really weird way.
No, it certainly is, because I didn't set out to become this type of an artist, I guess you could say. I don't know another word to put it as, but I mean, when I was in college, I didn't do anything like this. I wrote my own music. I wrote, orchestral, classical styled, whatever I wanted, emotional, moody. And I thought I was going to do film music, that type of thing, But then, I don't know. I don't know what made me want to do that. I didn't even think about it before we left. See, I know it's weird because we're talking together informally, but we're not informal. But we were getting ready to go to the book signing, and we were on the way. For those that don't know, Jason Ellis came through here. What year was that? 2012? 11?
It was.
10?
It would have been remember. April of 2012.
2012? Okay, correct. 2012. Yeah, because Jason Ellis is based out in California, and we are not. We do not have means to travel or do anything like that. At the time, we didn't really. We maybe at the time a little bit better. But anyways, Jason Ellis came here. He was releasing a book about his life, and he came here to do a book signing. And we decided to just do it because I had been listening to that show since about 2009, I think, was when I first started listening to that. Because I got my car in 2009. And he came here for book signing. We were on the way there, and I don't know. I just had it in the back of my head. I was like, I need to meet these people. I had felt a connection to the listeners that called into that show. Shout out to any Ellis fam that are listening to the show.
Absolutely.
But I know you guys, I don't know, you guys are out there. You know, it's the type of group that you don't speak a lot, but you know, they're just out there, you know, kind of in the wings. But I just felt like I wanted to meet some people, and they seemed like the people to meet. And I wanted to get to know about Jason Ellis. He was a very, I guess you could call him a powerful figure in radio. Jason Ellis,
I think in some ways he was
interesting.
extraordinarily inspirational in those early days. Like I think now in his career, like maybe he doesn't retrospectively know, but those early days when he was giving off crazy advice because he was hurting,
it was magical.
Real. It was so real, you know. I will never forget. There was one that he did using evil for good, you know. And I think he was talking about one of his brother's deaths or something, and it was a terrible story that he was then turning into a positive message of how he used that to become what he is now. And I fucking loved that. Like, just don't let your pain turn you dark. Let your pain push you to the light, because you can choose that for yourself. And that was a very powerful thing for me. And I remember when you introduced me to him, the first thing I ever saw was the Forrest Griffin kendo stick bit.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Man, whoa, that was crazy. So, so we go to this book signing, and we were in line. You like walk in the door and buy the book immediately, and then you're in, and that's all it is.
Yeah, so we buy the book, and we're waiting in line. Just it was at a bookstore, you know. But we connected with some of the people that were out there. But I saw Tully as a co-host. I believe he's still the co-host. I can't comment on current Jason Ellis show efforts. I've since not had Sirius XM for a while, but I just went up to shake Jason Ellis's hand. I brought him a tiny koala. I remember that.
The Lego koala.
Yeah, I grabbed it off my my stand right before we left. I didn't plan that either. I just grabbed it. I thought, ooh, koala, that's cute. Let's grab that. It ended up exploding in his bag. We were watching him live. I think like maybe a few days after he had flown home, and he was looking for it, and he said, "Oh, it exploded in my bag." But them's the breaks, I guess. But so. We were just chatting after the whole signing event was over. Everybody got to say hello to Tully and them. Everybody was just standing around kind of chatting, and I was talking to Tully, I believe, at first, because they were in Death, Death, Die at the time. And I just said, it just popped into my head. It was just kind of cooking back there. I said, what if I sent you a piano cover of The Woodsman? I said, would you guys play it on the radio? And Tully just kind of brightened up, and he looked at me, and he went, well, yeah, of course we would play it on the radio. That sounds really crazy and weird. Okay. Like, it just seemed like something different, I guess, to him. And then I believe I rattled it off to Ellis as well when he was standing there. I can't remember.
Yeah, you did.
Did I speak to him about that? I think I did. But I got the green light from Tully and from them, and they were in the band, you know, and this was a very listener-driven show at the time. The whole Woodsman little... For those that don't know, the Jason Ellis show back in the day made a C movie, possibly, a B horror movie called The Woodsman that was listener created. They took all these stories, these crazy things that people were saying, calling in and getting ideas, and they kind of gathered them all together and made a script. And it's an interesting piece of cinema, if you know what I mean. But anyway, so the Woodsman, they had like this sort of, the chorus is, the Woodsman is here. Like, dun 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 dun. It's kind of like this like Iron Maiden-y kind of thing going on.
Good.
Yeah, it had this little gallop to it. I don't know why I chose the Woodsman. That's just what popped in my head when we were talking in this conversation. Like I said, I didn't plan none of this like ahead of time. I didn't go to some book signing and go, oh, I think I'm going to ask this and this and this, and I'm just going to have my whole life all the ducks in a row, as it were. I didn't plan any of it. It just was a thing that my guts told me to do in the moment. And then and here's the effed up part.
Oh, you can say fuck.
I know. I just like to say effed up.
Okay, sure, that's
because
fine.
it's the vernacular, I guess.
I gotcha.
But the effed up part is that I had never done a piano anything like that before, an arrangement like that. I had never tried to. I had thought about it before. You know, you back like, I don't know, you see people on YouTube and stuff like that every once in a while. Not as much back then, because this, you know, it really started, I think I would say the last like 3 or 4 years has really started booming with the classical musicians doing the crossover work and playing video game songs and movie songs and all of that stuff that you see on YouTube. It's increasing quite a bit, which is wonderful. There needs to be more artists out there that do that kind of thing, I think. But I had never done anything like that before. And then on the ride home, I remember we went and got some sushi, and then we got in the car and I said, what the hell did I just do? Because I'm a person of conviction and a person of my word. And if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Now, sometimes it takes me a really long time to get things done. It just depends. But that's because I'm quite a perfectionist. I have to have things right, or I'm not going to put my name on them. I don't know why anybody would. I don't understand that mentality to just, you know, here, I'm just going to do this thing, whatever. Like, I'm not like that, especially not with music or anything creative. Any effort that I put in is not my best effort if I am not a perfectionist about it. So I was like, what the hell did I do here? I've never done this before. And I remember at the time you and I were sort of on the outs. I don't know. We had just moved. We were still living in my parents' house. We were just crammed into my old bedroom, the one that I grew up in, like a thin wall away from my parents at the time. I think we were still sleeping on that air mattress, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, things have graduated slightly since then. I'm no longer living at my parents' house. But that's
neither here nor there.
No, but I'm just saying that more out of memory, because I have a very visual memory, so I remember, you remember where things were placed in the room and how you do things. Whenever I do anything creative that I feel is my best effort, I remember a lot of vivid details surrounding the creation of those things. So I just remember when I was doing The Woodsman, just feeling it out. I mean, that was the key to it. I felt like there was a certain, when I listened to a song, and this goes for anything that I'm arranging, but when I'm listening to a song, I feel like there's just certain things that the listener has a gut reaction to naturally when it comes to it, whether that be the overall rhythm, it's a melody, it's a, maybe it's a funky bass line, maybe it's just, maybe it's a polyrhythmic thing, who knows? It just depends on the song. Maybe it's the melody in the vocal line that really has got the hooks. Maybe a lot of pop music is like that, where it's melody driven. But so that's how I approached it, not knowing how to arrange on piano, really. I mean, I had been to college, of course. I went to school to be, like I said, a film composer, essentially. I didn't go for film composing. I went for music composition at Columbia College, which I did get my degree in. And then I went to do postgraduate studies. There's a thing called semester in LA that Columbia College offered. I think they still offer it for film scoring. There's a permanent lot on CBS Studios. They have like a bungalow there, and you go and study with people in Hollywood. And it was great. It was a really great experience. I got to record a little film cue at Capitol Records at the end. It was pretty sweet. That's the Capital A, where they had Frank Sinatra, the Beatles, you name it. The good one. Yeah, not the let's go all the way up to the top floor and hope we can lug our instruments up their studio. This was the bottom floor. Walk through the door and you're right there. The good one, as they say. But that was an incredible experience, and that's, I had all that experience behind me, but I had never done this very specific thing, which I now know, being however many, so that was 2012? That was only 5 years ago?
Yeah, correct.
It feels like it was like at least a decade ago that I did that. That does not seem like it's only been 5 years.
No, it's only literally been 5 years. Isn't that crazy?
Well, there's been a lot of things that have happened in that 5 years. I guess
Might
a lot
get into
of
some of
things.
those, yeah. But
yeah, I that's how I approached it without ever having done this type of thing before, and it seemed to successful. Everybody was very receptive of it. Jason Ellis was super interested. They called me, I believe, when I sent it to them. The radio show called me, and I remember being in my parents' it was like the afternoon, because the show starts, what was it on, like 2, I think it started back in the day?
2 to 6 here,
Yeah.
12 to 4 there.
Yeah, something to that effect. And I remember it was in the afternoon. We were just listening and waiting, and it was nerve-wracking, because it was Sirius XM radio.
Well,
a
the
lot
thing
of people
too
listening.
that you might forget is that you sent this in like only 2 weeks after we saw them. Not
Correct.
even. Like, I mean, you just like, pow, boom, kicked
Mm-hmm.
it out, and it was awesome. I remember the first time I heard you play it all the way through, like, complete, I was like, holy shit, that's incredible. Like, it sounds like the song. What's happening here, So you churned it out really quick, but you churned it out quick enough that, like, was it like a day after your birthday or something, or 2 days after your birthday they called?
Something
and that's
like
when
that,
they played
yeah.
it? Because they said it was your 30th birthday.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It
It
was
wasn't. You
it
were
was my
29.
29th birthday, yeah. Or was that for Darkness
No,
Within? when
no,
happened?
that was.
No, that was for the Wisman.
It was the
Yeah,
Wisman.
it was Wisman. It's like, how old am I again? When was I born? What is this?
So back
I
at it. So
forget.
back at it. We were, you were talking about being nerve wracking, and they're gonna call you.
Oh yeah. Well, they called me when they played it, and then I don't remember what the first one they talked to me. It's still lurking out there on my SoundCloud, I think, or something. So we had somebody send us a radio clip. They who was that back in the day?
Cobra Tits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cobra Tits. Who I don't know what he's up to these days. I know he's no longer active in the community. But,
Yeah.
a lot of us are like that. But that's okay. People move on and they do things that are whatever they need to do. But yeah, we got a clip of those things. I don't remember what they talked about when they called me that time. But anyway, so it was pretty cool to have my work featured, even just a little bit. They had, I think it was on the new music segment that they had, right? And they called me on the new music segment, which usually the new music segment is not so positive. A lot of times they would find bands that clearly they were not playing because there was any sort of
Ultimate troll mode.
something like that. Yeah, it was not so friendly for the bands a lot of times. But the funny thing is about that is that they weren't just like going online and picking bands and then making fun of them. People would send them their shit and say, oh, it's kind of like when people have the hashtag roast me online, like you're asking for it. Okay, you know what this segment is. You know why you're sending this in. I did not ask for it. That was where Tully placed me when I sent it. I sent him the email, and I even sent him the sheet music. I said, if you're interested in what the Woodsman looks like on sheet music, which is the absurdity. Oh, it makes me laugh. But if you're interested in what it looks like, here it is. But yeah, so it was on the New Music Tuesday. That's right. That's what it was. New Music Tuesday.
Yeah.
I knew it would come to me. It's been a while. But yeah, so it was one of those featured little things, and they gave me a call and just asked me a few questions about it and said, oh, we only saw you a few weeks ago or whatever. Like, I think they made mention of that.
Yeah, they
if I
did.
recall.
And then fast forwarding a little bit,
Yeah.
they had the Wolf Knives group, right? Which they still do.
Oh, it was a little later, yeah.
And it was, well, not too much later. It was within
It kinda-
it was like in June at this point. It was like
Yeah,
a
I
month
guess it was
after.
the same year.
So, Ellis decided to start a gang. It was more a club. It was more like the people that really were in with Ellis fam at the time. I
Yeah.
felt like the
was-
Wolf Knives stood for something, maybe.
It was just born from the stuff that they talk about on the show.
Correct.
Like everything else, it just grew out of the
Mythos,
jokes and
yeah.
right. That's a good way to put it. Every one of these radio shows kind of has their own little universe that they create. There's inside jokes and all kinds of stuff going on there. So yeah, it started off kind of as an inside joke, and then it just and I couldn't tell you. Don't ask me to quote what the joke was or the specific reference with the wolf knives.
Wolf Knife's laser torch.
Wolf Knives laser torch.
Josh got it tattooed on his side.
That's right. I remember that now. I remember when they did that.
Because they were talking about it, and then somebody actually drew it and sent it to him. And they made Josh get it tattooed because he was an intern at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Man, those different days for sure. And then to mention, of course, Josh also helping me get my start in podcasting.
Yeah, he was an inspiration for you. Yeah,
letting me be a part of the Josh Figures It Out podcast where we did the Incepticast. But back to you and what's going on. They called you for your Wolf Knives name. Everybody got a name. If as I remember, it was like you fucking send us your money. And then send in your information about who you are.
Yeah.
If you already have a name, put it, and we'll give you that name or whatever. Or they were going to also be calling people.
But that was just what they did. OG. They don't really do that anymore. It's kind of been watered down a little bit from what it was. But initially, it was like an initiation type thing.
Yeah.
You had to have done something cool for the show, or you had to have some reason. You had on your little. They had these silly little forms you had to fill out, and you had to put the reason why you deserved to have a Wolf Knives name. That wasn't something that they just handed out to everybody. And I remember they would reject people on the radio all the time. People would call in and be like, "Man, give me my Wolf Knives name, man, come on." And they would just be like, "Tell us what you did lately," and then they would click.
Yeah.
Like they would kick people out all the time. They started off with the first batch of them calling people. It wasn't. They stopped doing it because it just got overwhelming after a while because it was an experiment like anything else, and it just kind of took off with people, the whole Wolf Knives thing. I mean, they didn't know if they were going to be doing it a year from then. But it was pretty cool. It was me and like 4 other people that day. I think they had like 5 people they called that day. Or maybe, I think it was like 5. Don't matter. But I was the first lady that got inducted as a Wolf Knife, fun fact. That's they call me the first lady of the Wolf Knives because of that, I guess. And also the Woods Woman, that was my name. If anybody's wondering, I have a few handles out there as the Woods Woman. If you see that, that's me. That's because I did the Woodsman on piano. Now you know.
Yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, Josh gave me my Wolf Knives name, but
it was micro pianist.
Oh yeah, Tully's idea was the micro pianist. And as much as I thought that was hilarious, I really did not want to have the moniker and a little pat and all kinds of crazy stuff that's happened and have the micro pianist attached to me for the rest of time. That just implies I'm going to play like a mini Korg the rest of my life, a tiny little piano.
Like a 7-key baby
synth. Yeah, and as fun as that sounds, that's a different thing.
Yeah, I don't know what that was, but so then to move forward with the Wolf Knives name, that was just a little backstory on what the Jason Ellis show was.
Yeah, I know we were getting to Machine Head.
To Machine Head, though, to fast forward a little under a year after the book signing, we're in February of 2013 at this point, and as I had said, you've been working on the Darkness Within cover or your piano rendition, your arrangement. That's the word I was looking for.
Which also was not planned, really.
Yeah, and where does that kind of spawn from?
Well, again, whenever I get we'll call it a gut full of inspiration. I feel inspiration in my guts when it happens. And I remember I was working. Where was I working at the time? I was coming home from somewhere, one of the jobs I had. I don't remember if I was still working at GameStop or not, or if this was when I had fully gone off the deep end and taken on teaching full time. But I went home that particular day, and I had just had Machine Head on. This was when I was listening. I'm not a huge fan. Backstory here. I am not a huge fan of the digital MP3s, all of this business. When iPods and all of that stuff started to come out, I noticed a considerable loss in quality for the sound that annoyed me to this day. I don't like the sparkle. If anybody knows what that means when you're listening to an MP3, and you hear the shininess, the crackle around the edges, as it were. It's something that really bugs for me, and it has to do with what they do to compress the file. But that's a different discussion altogether. So I had at the time was still trying with these MP3 devices, and I had a Zune. I think that was my Zune at the time that I had, and it was on random. Like I used to have it, you just hit random and you shuffle all your songs, whatever, hundreds, thousands of songs you have. And that day it picked Darkness Within by Machine Head. And I was driving home, and I'll never forget it. It started when I started my journey home, and then wherever I was coming home from, it finished up right when I pulled into my parents' driveway, because we were still living at my parents' house. And I remember sitting there in the car listening to the song finish up, and I heard it in my head in the piano. I heard it all. And and you think about it, and if anybody has ever listened to Machine Head, they're a very heavy band. They're very just doom sounds to their guitars. There's a tone there. It's very heavy. And of course Rob Flynn, very heavy on the vocals, but not at the beginning. I mean, it definitely, you can hear it at the beginning of the song. It's a very peaceful, if not tense beginning, Darkness Within. But that's not why I chose it. It kind of chose me. I don't know how else to explain that. It was a really weird sensation, the idea if anybody that's listening is a creative person and you make things on the regular, or you consider yourself an artist of any kind in any genre of things like painting or otherwise, dancing maybe, whatever you do, that's the inspiration when it hits you, and it does feel like a sense of being chosen to do a thing, however big or small that thing is. I mean, it could be like the other day, inspiration hit me, and I sat for 6 to 7 hours drawing a picture for my band.
Yeah,
I won't say what it is yet, because I don't know if it'll be up on the internet. Yeah, but I've been making a lot of artwork again. It's been a while, but that's the inspiration when it hits you. So I was just sitting there with it in my guts, and I heard it, and I started working on it immediately. I walked down. We were living in the basement at this point. Graduated to parents' basement. You want to talk about that? Some people feel the mark of shame is living in the parents' basement. We graduated to the parents' basement. Okay.
But hey, your parents have a nice fucking basement, though.
Yeah, it's all right. It's finished. It has tiny house down there, whatever. But I remember I started working on it immediately. And this was only the second one that Did I do? I tinkered with a few more Death, Death, Die songs. I think Awesome World I did a little improv on or something.
No, you did all of Awesome World. You did another one.
I did, but it never was finished, Awesome World. It was just at I never really finished it to my satisfaction, I guess. I never put it in concrete, and by concrete I mean sheet music. I feel like that's setting it in stone a lot of ways. You have to make certain decisions when you write it down.
I think you did Awesome World as the thank you for what happened next in all of this.
Yeah. Oh, I think it was after. It might have been after.
Yeah, because that was like your.
But this was because I don't remember doing anything between The Woodsman and the Machine Head song, because I was teaching quite heavily at this time. I was for a time there driving 2 hours back and forth during the week, teaching in 2 different places, teaching in Nate's hometown area down in central Illinois, and then I was teaching in northwest Indiana as well at 2 different studios, just all week long, full time. I just was, you make it work. You just do what you have to do what you want to do. And well, you have said. Sometimes you have to be really reckless with your decisions about your life. And I don't mean, I got to go do a bunch of alcohol and drugs and all of that. I'm not talking about that type of reckless. I'm talking about future reckless, where you say, I have this job that I could have for years that has benefits and 401k. And you just have to say, well, I got to do this other thing, and then just do it. I don't know. That's what I had to do. And I love teaching. That's a different part of music. I can talk about that another time or later, I guess.
We can talk about it in a bit, yeah.
I don't want to talk about it right now.
No worries. No worries.
But it's anyways, back to the point. Machine Head, Darkness Within. That was the second one I ever tried. And Nate, you're right. There's a lot of layers to that song. There's a lot of stuff going on. The guitar solo was pretty well crafted. And my transcription skills then are not what they are now. I've done a lot since then. And I do remember I started in the middle of that. I shouldn't say I didn't do anything between The Woodsman and Darkness Within as far as arranging is concerned, because I was arranging for my students. I was making easy piano arrangements of pop songs and, whatever, video game songs and songs from cartoons and movies and stuff. That's arranging them for kids. So making them easy versions and things, which is its own challenge. That's a different kind of challenge than the all-out, let's make it sound exactly like the song or as close as possible type of transcribing. That's a little bit different. But so this was really the second one that I tried to go all out on. That's what we'll say there. So I was getting some practice arranging for students. So my ears were getting better, but it was still something I was pretty new at the time. And I remember, and I don't have to do this anymore, but when I was trying to transcribe the guitar solo, I started, as anybody naturally would, with trying to look up some tabs online, looking for, all the variety of places where you can find free tabs and free sheets and this and that. And it's all just user-created, user-uploaded things. And a lot of times, and this is where I began to learn this lesson the most, is that a lot of times it's completely wrong. Or it's completely, because it's user submitted, you don't know if it's quote unquote fake news. Okay, you don't know if it's going to be the real thing or not until you sit down and you analyze it for what it is. You have to read between the lines when you're reading those kinds of sheets and that type of tablature and all of that. But really, all I could find was guitar tablature that had anything that was very specific as far as the notes go. And this was me trying to look to guitar players to tell me how they play their instrument. As I do with anything, when you go to school to be a composer, you learn how to try to think like the instrumentalist to best compose for the instrument, aside from learning all the technical things about every instrument in the orchestra and learning about their ranges and all of that theoretical stuff. You learn how to empathize with the person playing the instrument and how to, you ask them how they play their instrument. So that's what I did. I approached it that way, and I would look at guitar tablature and things, and I worked out the system. Man, I don't even know if I'd have to look at my old notes, which are somewhere buried in my piles of papers back in the studio. But I'm not going to dig them out now. But I would have to look at them. I worked out a system to read the guitar tablature on my piano, so I could read it like sheet music. It's a system of intervals, I think, is what I ended up working out, just because of the way the guitar is tuned and so forth. And that got me about, I would say 75%, to be generous, of the way there when it came to transcribing the solo anyways. The rest I just had to work out with my ears and a whole lot of listens through and all of that and finagling. And unfortunately at the time I tried to bounce ideas off of previous coworkers, which I wish I would not have done, but what can you do? That's how I did it, the Darkness Within thing. And then I just it took a lot longer, and I had to play to my limits. I arranged it for myself to be able to play at the level that I was at the time. I think if I did it now and I refreshed it, it would be a lot different. I mean, not a lot different, but there would be some things that would be a little more intricate. Some of the things I would add in that I wasn't able to at the time. But knowing now what I went through with my surgery and things, which we can talk about in a little bit maybe, I had pain and things in my left hand, and eventually I had surgery for that fairly recently. It's only been almost 2 years since I had that surgery. But so I played to where I was at the time, and that's what came out. And people seem to really like it. That was a crazy thing that happened to me. I
talk
remember
about that a little bit, like just to kind of give you like a second to breathe. you made this video, and I filmed it, and I remember you were not ready for me to film it. I said, no, trust me, it's really good. Like, people need to hear this. And you're like, oh, come on, it's not that great. And I was like, no, listen, I hear it. I hear what's going on. So you did it in one take. And we put it on YouTube, but we didn't put it, like...
We didn't put it out there.
Public.
We just put it up.
And the only way you could see it is if you had the link. And that... I'll let you kind of tell what happened there. But we had the link, and then go ahead.
Yeah, I felt like I was ready to record at least like what I considered to be a demo version, not like a final version, just a one pass through where I could actually play it from beginning to end and feel a sense of mastery over it. That was... I felt like it was at that level, and then you recorded it, on that crappy cell phone, man.
Oh, yeah.
It was terrible quality, just awful. But we made it, and it was in my, room in my parents' basement, and just whatever clothes I had on, it wasn't like something I dressed up for, because I just was going to send it to a few people. We kept the link private, and we sent it to, the same people that we sent it to when we sent in The Woodsman. Because we sent it to...
We did not send it.
We didn't send it to them? I thought we sent it to
remember,
them. We sent it to a few Ellis fans.
You were not ready to send it, and Ellis
I
fan
wasn't.
got it into Ellis's hands.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because we sent it to... Did we send it to Tim?
Yes,
and
I
we
think so.
We sent it to Tim, and we sent it to a couple other people. I think there was just a very few handful of people
that had it, yeah.
And then they convinced us to send it to... the radio station, because I didn't think it was...
They sent it. We did not send it to the radio.
They didn't? They sent it, didn't they?
Yeah.
I must have forgot about that part.
Well, it was kind of all overwhelming, because what happened was they sent it without us knowing. And then said, hey, we sent it to Ellis. Ellis tweeted it that same morning. He retweeted it just once.
Yeah,
but then...
Yeah, I remember that now. Okay. Oh, it's been a while since I've talked about this with anybody.
Yeah.
I talked about it after it happened, and I probably annoyed the hell out of everybody around me, but I was super, super proud of that one, because I'd never done anything really like that intricate, and you're right, we did. I was very nervous about that. And then I felt super exposed when they told me that they had sent it to him. I remember that now. And then Ellis tweets it, and then he is friends, like personal friends with Rob Flynn. And I don't know, to a lesser extent, maybe Phil Demmel, but definitely Rob Flynn. Rob Flynn has been on the Ellis show several times as a guest in, variety of capacities. But he obviously follows Ellis on Twitter and caught wind of it. And by the time 24 hours had passed, Rob Flynn had gotten a hold of it and had tweeted it 2 separate times within an hour, I think. He tweeted it once, and then, listen to the fucking solo. And then an hour later, he tweeted it again. He's like, it brought me to tears. I had to listen to it again. He was that moved by it. And I felt moved that he was moved. It's like, you're crying, so I'm crying. Stop crying. It was one of those situations. But I will never forget that day. I woke up for work the next day, and my video in less than a day had rolled over 10,000 plays. And that was something I had never experienced before. And I broke out in hives, which is another thing I have yet to experience before or since. I was almost livid. I don't know if that's the right word, livid. It's not the right word, because I was not upset by any means. I was very excited, but I was just full of crazy anxiety. That was more exposure than I cared to give people in my parents' basement when I was barely in my clothes. I felt, I had lots of clothes on, t-shirts and jeans, but I was one step away from pajamas is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got
But
you.
that's, it was just very humbling that happened, and I was very excited about that. And it continued to roll forward since. I mean, I still to this day get comments about that video.
28,000 now lifetime, which is
not bad.
Cool.
It's a small victory. It's for what it is, for what it was, because it was crappy quality cell phone video of a piece that I had barely just finished. It was right out the gate. And
I mean, you didn't even touch on that Ellis played it on his show as well.
Yeah, he did.
And
yeah, he did.
And I think
he called me for that one too. The show called me and did like a tiny little mini interview and wanted to ask me about it the day that they played it, because I think it might have been another New Music Tuesday that they played it on. Or they might have no, they didn't do it on New Music Tuesday for that one. They just had it on, because I remember we thought they were going to do that.
That's right.
And then they played it on a different, because Tully kept messaging me and saying, oh no, it's going to be on, we're going to do it this time or whatever. They were a little bit, they were a little bit unorganized sometimes, not all the time, but it was a fly by the seat of your pants type of thing sometimes.
The day that Ellis got a hold of it, they played it. Whatever.
Yeah, but it was as far as within the show, because they have like 4 hours of show that they're doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they were fly by the seat of their pants when they were going to do things.
Correct.
In
and
context. So I was just waiting and waiting,
5 our time. It was later in the day.
Yeah, again, still at my parents' house. I remember getting the phone call for that, talking about that one. That was in the basement that time, but that was pretty cool to have them call me and be interested in that. On a personal level, that was something that I wasn't trying to do for attention or for any other reason other than I wanted to do it, and I felt inspired to do it. And I guess, like, what other reason is there? What's the point of making stuff if you're just doing it for attention? I guess you'll get attention. Congratulations. Like, you'll feel a void at the end of it unless it's something that really meant something to you. So that's what it is. Yeah, that was a pretty cool time. We can talk. I don't know what else to talk about with Machine Head.
Well, you got to talk. fast forward a little bit to.
We did get to meet them. That was cool.
Yeah, and that was a little bit more my story than yours.
Yeah, you cut your teeth there a little bit.
They were coming through Chicago, and I just in my head said, like, look, they sent out tweets about it. Their Facebook shared it. Like, the Machine Head Facebook shared it. At the time, the Machine Head's Facebook was like nearing 1 million fans or some shit. It was crazy. But they shared it, and then I was like, man, they're going to be in Chicago. I think that we need to meet these guys. Like, I think that would be a cool thing. Maybe you guys can talk, whatever. So I just was like, fuck it, I'm going to do this thing. And I just called their manager straight up.
Mm-hmm. Tour manager. Or not the tour manager. The band manager, the general manager.
I called him, and I said, hey, Sara is in Chicago. You guys are coming through Chicago. Let's meet. Let's make this happen. That's what we should do. And dude got a hold of me right away.
Yeah.
And was like, Machine Head knows who Sara is. They're very aware. They would love to meet her. I'm going to give you the number of our tour manager. Call him. He'll set it up. Called him. Dude sets it up. We watch Machine Head play. And then we wait backstage. And we got to meet them. And what was that experience like for you? Because now your work, in so many words, has paid off.
Yeah.
I can't say that there is always a moment in time where somebody does an interesting rendition or cover of a song that they get to meet the person who fucking wrote the song. Not always. Sometimes the artist might tweet it out and say that's cool or whatever, but those paths never cross. So what was it like for you? I know what it was like for me. It was really surreal being in that moment, because I was like, both excited at meeting Machine Head and also excited watching you meet Machine Head, because like you had this really cool journey with them, and I was just like, what the fuck? So what was that like for you to have that kind of be where that part of the story at least ends?
Yeah, it's so that was crazy. I still feel a little bit humbled by that even happened. Was it Mayhem Fest?
Correct.
I couldn't remember Rockstar, Mayhem. All those festivals are kind of the same. So this one, I guess, was Mayhem. And this would have been 2013 now. We're up to 2013 because it was February 2013 when I uploaded the Machine Head video. So this was like a summer concert. It was like
July
of
of
2013.
I think.
Sometime in July 2013. And they set up a meeting and gave us the tour manager's phone number. The general manager gave it to Nate and said, hey, when you're there, this is who you need to contact. He'll instruct you on how to go about this thing, because this wasn't like a regular meet and greet or anything like that. This was just they wanted to plan it out so they could actually sit and talk to me, is what it sounded like at the time. Like, we didn't know what we were getting into, honestly. Like, we went there and we were just hoping that it was actually going to happen, that somebody wasn't just like playing us or just like, oh yeah, haha, you think that's you're going to get in there, whatever. And you don't know people that are, sometimes they say never meet your heroes. Sometimes they say that. I'll say ahead of time, this was not one of those cases. I mean, I don't know. I don't like to use the word hero very often in context of people that I look up to, because it's just people are people, artists are artists and whatnot. But anyways, it was a little bit nerve-wracking. We had a really interesting thing happen before that. One of my students at the time, I was working at a studio that was, we won't talk about that, but at the time I was not supposed to be seeing students outside of this building, which I think is a little bit, it doesn't matter.
They have crooked practices.
It doesn't matter what I think about that.
Let's move forward, yeah.
But that's besides the point. One of my students' dads and him, young Neil as we affectionately call him, you can see pictures of this stuff online. All of this stuff, we took pictures and all that kind of thing when it happened. But his dad was taking him to that festival. He told me that day, he's like, "Oh, you're gonna go there? We totally have to meet up. I'm gonna be there." Like he told me that sometime that day, because people communicate online because this is the 21st century after all. So
correct.
I mean, come on. But anyways, so his dad hunted me down, and we were all together. My young Neil was 13 at the time, I think. Wasn't he young?
Yeah, he was 13 at the time.
Yeah, because this was 4 years ago. Okay, so he was 13. So here's me and my 13-year-old student and his dad and Nate. And this was the crew that Nate's like, "Hey, is it cool if we bring a student along too to meet Machine Head?" And after Nate finally got a hold of the tour manager, I think you called him. You guys had to play phone tag for a minute, if I remember correctly.
It was a little stressful, mainly because I was contacting them while he was working with them right after they had played a show.
Right.
And think about how you feel after you play a show, Sarah.
Yeah.
These guys literally played a show, went and had some food, maybe smoked some weed. I don't know what they did. They did whatever they wanted to do. Then they got done with that, and then they went backstage, and then they got themselves together, and then they met you.
Yeah, that's how it ended up, because Nate played phone tag for a minute with the tour manager, and the guy said it was cool to have my student and his dad back there and whatever. And they did. He said, well, they'd prefer to, we're going to wait until, we didn't know if it was going to be before or after their set. Their set was, I think it was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. Yeah. The Machine Head set. It wasn't dark yet when we met them. It was still daylight outside. And we saw their set, and then it was about an hour after that, because he said, the guys are going to get something to eat, and then we'll have you back. And they waited to have this meeting with me. I thought that was so nice that they waited and really made it a thing, you guys. Like this was like a group of guys that was really interested in what I had to say. That's what I need to say about the members of Machine Head. And this was when Jared was still, this was his first tour with their bass player Jared. He had just gotten off of his old, what was his old band? Sanctity, right? Yeah, Sanctity. He had that was his old band, and he had just been adopted. I remember when they were doing the audition videos for their new bass player after he left, and Jared got it, and that was his first tour with them. And I remember we were both just so excited together when I met Jared, because he's like, "Oh, it's so awesome that I'm playing with Machine Head." I'm like, "Oh, it's so awesome that I'm like talking to y'all, and you all are Machine Head, and you're playing, and blah, 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 blah." And I just remember it was a very exciting conversation. I talked to Jared for a long time after that, but they spent about an hour with us, talking to us and chatting. I mean, they didn't go. I need you to think about this, okay? Like, you heard me tell this story, right? This is like the second thing of any legitimacy that I had ever done in my life. I felt fresh out of college still, even though I was several years out. I graduated in 2006 from college, so I was a few years out, quite a few from college, and I still felt like it was a little bit fresh out of there. But here's how I need you to think about that through those eyes, because here's me, 5'4.5" roughly, standing there with all 4 members of Machine Head in a semicircle around me, hanging on my words. I mean, they were talking. Nate was witness to this, as was my student and his dad. I had Phil Demmel look me in the face and go, "How did you pick out all those notes? They were exactly right." And I went, and I just pointed at my ears, and I said, "I did it like that." I mean, the guitar tablature I had mentioned before helped me only to a certain extent, and even then, after I did that, I ended up going back and changing a lot of things. It was like not what y'all are thinking as far as notation goes. There was a lot that went into that, and now I do everything 100% with my ears. I don't use anything at all as far as looking online, looking up tabs or anything, looking up chords. I don't do any of that. I do everything with my ears now. But that's what experience gets you. You know, you can't start somewhere without starting wherever you're at, and that's where I was at.
Yep.
But I will never forget that. I talked about ragtime music with Phil Demmel. That was wonderful. I thought that was great because at the time I was still competing in a ragtime festival every now and again, and so I don't know, because they were asking me about what kind of music I played and stuff like that. They were like, basically all of them just asking me questions and interested in my background, interested in a variety of things, you know. And they weren't seeming to feign interest. There wasn't like one member of them that was just like, "Oh, this is stupid and I don't want to be here," you know. Like, nobody was forcing them to meet with us, is my point. It was very natural and very much like, "Hey, you're fucking awesome and we want to spend a little bit of time with you because you did this awesome thing." You know, that's really what it felt like, I swear. And it was just a very, as Nate said, surreal thing to have happen. When it's one thing to meet people that are in a band, that are famous or whatever, that have done a incredible amount of significant things. It's one thing to buy a meet and greet package and shake their hand. It's another thing to meet them on the street, say, "Oh, I'm a huge fan. Let's grab a drink and you can sign something for me." You know, without any, I mean, that's like meeting a stranger, going on a blind date, something like that. This wasn't like that. This felt very personal. This felt like something that I don't know. I knew at the time it was going to stick with me for a while, but I had never had people, I guess of that stature, you could say, show me that kind of respect as a musician. That's really what came across to me. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm talking to Rob Flynn about I'm just giggling about this because I'm talking to him about his song and about all of the chords and the rhythms and the structure, you know, all the things that you study when you study a piece of music. At least what I study a lot of things. And he's just looking at me and he's smiling and he gets this grin on his face and he's done it and he's like, "You know, what you said made sense to me, but I just play the happy and the sad notes." And that's what I know. And I just had this moment where in my head I was just like almost giggling, not like laughing at somebody, but just like giggling to myself because I thought, I have studied this song more than the people that wrote it to do the thing that I needed to do. That, not like placing fault on these people, because that's just how it is.
Just write the song.
Yeah. When you write a song, and this is in my experience when I write songs or when I write music of any kind, you just do the thing. You don't think about it in the same analytical way as somebody on the outside looking in who's trying to figure out what you did. that's what I did, was solving this puzzle. That's really what arranging is just solving a series of puzzles, and then you just work the puzzle. That's how it feels to me. You have like raw material in the song that you grab from, the rhythms and the notes and blah 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 blah, blah, whatever it is that you're grabbing onto as a listener, and then you just work the puzzle, and that's how I do when I'm arranging. But that's yeah, that was a super powerful moment. And then to be able get back to this too, to not only be able to share that with Nate, to be able to share that with my student.
And that was me and Sarah having an amazing conversation. Episode 1 of The Voice of Survival, again, a brilliant look back at the genesis of this show. It was amazing to, have Sarah let her kind of be my test subject for this show, because I didn't know, and I know Sarah really well. Obviously, we've had a long history past together, so to be able to sit down and know her story, but still be able to kind of tell it and let her tell it and navigate it and ask the in-betweens, that was the whole point of this. So now let's jump on in. We're going to go ahead now and take a look at the interview I did with Veronica Evans, episode 5 of The Voice of Survival, my best friend, and I can't wait for you guys to hear this. Again, you're going to hear a little bit of music. That's just the kick over, and we'll take it away now. I mean, there's like a million questions I feel like I can ask you just from music alone.
Wow, that's a really loaded question. But
fire away.
Okay. All right. I'm game. Well, I've always been a singer. I started singing when I was little, and I was always such a ham and a performer. That was just my thing. I think my mom still has old VHS tapes of me singing Guns N' Roses as a 3-year-old on my grandma's coffee table. And I just always wanted to be a rocker. That's always what I wanted to do, is just be a musician. And I guess that's just always been the thing. Nothing really else ever did it for me.
Okay, so like what's the first, are there bands that you're listening to with your mom? I mean, you talk about Guns N' Roses, but like... Yeah,
my mom had a huge influence on me with music, especially in my childhood. Being really little, a lot of the things that I remember can be kind of like correlated with home videos of us, just like when they got, like 1990, 91, they got a camcorder, and they would just film for hours, just them being dumbasses and weirdos and playing with me and playing with my toys. And like, I don't know, I have a very specific soundtrack of my youth that was very heavily influenced by my mom, and she loved shit like Guns N' Roses and The Cure and The Smiths and all sorts of stuff like that. And my dad was a musician. He played guitar when he was young, and he was always playing guitar for me whenever I'd go and stay with him on the weekends and stuff. And I just would sit there and watch him play guitar for like probably an hour or two every weekend that I was with him. And we'd never talk. He'd just keep playing, and I'd just stare at it the whole time. And yeah, they were both very into music, and that made me into music.
Excellent. So you said you kind of have like a soundtrack of your childhood, if you will, like leading up to a point. What are some of the different like bands that are in that soundtrack for you, and why are they such a fixture? Because okay, it's obviously, listen, I get it. As a musician myself and growing up in a household that was very musically inclined, the whole thing with your parents listening to certain music, you're going to be into it, can be true, but at times it can also have nothing to do with that. You could listen to something your parents listen to and go, not for me, but other stuff, it catches you.
Right.
And I think there's a great importance of, I almost say like character. When there's something about a certain band or a genre that hooks you, you can just see like who a person deep down, really is. So we're talking about, your musical soundtrack. Just go ahead, list off some band songs, things that pop into your head. I know one off the top of my head that it's definitely kind of embedded in there because it was recently used in one of my favorite movies, Mr. Blue Sky.
Oh yeah, Yellow.
Yeah, and the Groot scene in the beginning of Guardians 2. So I just wanted to know, like, what are some other songs that you would put on that list? Maybe make your Awesome Mix Volume 3.
My Awesome Mix Volume 1. Okay. Well, if I'm thinking, am I talking about like my whole youth or this very specific time of like when music started becoming important to me?
When music started, that's a great way to put it. Exactly when music started becoming important to me. When you remembered, like...
Okay, I was 3 and I was living in my grandma's house with my mom and my aunt and my other aunt and my uncle and my great-grandma. We all lived together in this house, and it was magical and wonderful, and I have the best memories of that, and it's so sweet. And I have tons of home videos that my family has of us just being weirdos, like I said. And I guess if I'm talking about that point in my life, I would definitely put on my mix some Rolling Stones, because we had a Mick Jagger poster in our bedroom, me and my mom.
Sure. What Stones though?
If you start me up.
Oh, you like? Okay, cool.
That's the one I remember from my mom.
Okay.
That's
I
what
always
I
think Paint It Black with the Stones.
With the Stones.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite Rolling Stones song is "You Can't Always Get What You Want," and I really like "Sympathy for the Devil." Cliche, whatever.
Hey,
don't give a
covered
fuck.
by Guns N' Roses. Another
That's
flashback
right.
to your childhood.
I was gonna say Guns N' Roses, "Paradise City" is on there. There's a video of me dancing in my grandma's house to Paradise City and just singing it the chorus over and over because it was the only part that I knew.
I mean, that's what you do when you're little.
Yeah, I'd also put "Welcome to the Jungle" on there.
Okay.
Because there's a home video of 2 of my aunts lip syncing to it and dressed up like Axl Rose, and it was so fucking funny. And someday when they give me permission, I'll release it to the world because it needs to be seen. It's pretty great. But anyway,
awesome.
I can't think of the name of the band off the top of my head. I guess I'll just go ahead and say the Smiths. My mom really was into the Smiths and the Cure.
Yeah.
Some of those things would be on there. And what else?
There's a really big one that I'm really surprised you haven't said yet.
What is it?
Bowie.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, we could talk all day about David Bowie.
We could talk all day about Bowie. Come on. Yeah, that's obvious. Bowie. Who else?
But, like, what song? I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, there's so many great David Bowie songs. Is there one that, like, from that moment in time maybe sticks out to you the most?
Yeah, it would be the entire soundtrack from the movie The Labyrinth.
Hey, you have a giant poster of that in your house.
I do. Nathaniel and Sarah got me a beautiful Labyrinth poster, movie poster that hangs up in my living room.
Yeah.
And what was that for my birthday?
I actually know that was absolutely. It's funny because we were talking about this the other day in your kitchen. I like fucked up and I couldn't remember when we got you this knife set.
Yeah.
And
it was either Christmas or my birthday.
It was definitely your birthday though, because we also got you the potato masher and something else.
That's right.
Food related.
Well, yeah.
Of course.
Duh.
But no, we got you the Labyrinth poster for like first Christmas, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember hanging it in the weird spot in your house. It looked cool there, but there was no like light or whatever.
Right.
And now it's definitely like a standout piece in your house. You do definitely have a huge love for David Bowie. That is one of the. I'm gonna jump forward a little bit and get a little deep here, but that is a memory I will never ever forget as long as I live. We were in the house here. You went out for a smoke, and you came back in pale. And I was like, oh no, someone in her family died. Like, I was like, this is about to be bad.
Yeah.
And you said, you're like, guys, like David Bowie died. And I was crushed for you because I knew how much he meant to you as an artist, as a person. Didn't you just like months before that, didn't you go to the exhibit they did with Bowie?
I did, yeah. We went up there to go see it, but we missed it. We weren't able to do it. Like, we got there and they were like sold out for the day or whatever, and then we just didn't have the opportunity to go back, so we didn't get to see it. But I took some pictures of the building because it looked really cool up in Chicago, Yeah. But yeah, that was a really terrible night when that happened. I was super sad. It was like a little piece of my youth went,
Absolutely.
And I don't know. Yeah, I loved Bowie.
Yeah.
And I got that David Bowie coloring book. And, we never did it. We never colored any of it, though.
Well, we gotta make copies of it so we don't ruin the book because we're nerds like that.
Maybe I'll make copies of it and take it to the kids at my preschool.
That's an amazing idea.
They can color Bowie
amazing.
instead of ducks.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
So you have your musical journey that starts, and you're living with a lot of your family in one space.
Mm-hmm.
When do you start to get the early? Okay, I know you were being a ham and like dancing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dancing and singing, two different things. And when did you start to have like that early musician mind of confidence? Like, I can actually probably put this together if I try a little bit. Like, was it Disney movies? Is that where it comes from? I've always wanted to know because it feels like in your timeline,
Disney
I feel
had
like
a
Little
big
Mermaid
impact
just like
on me.
lines up.
Well, yeah, Little Mermaid. Would that come out in like '89? I think it was '89. My Aunt Melissa bought me a VHS copy of The Little Mermaid from when it was originally released. And it even has the artwork, the band artwork, and the castle of the dick.
Yeah, the phallic artwork.
The phallic artwork. Yeah, I still have that. But yeah, Disney movies definitely had a big impact on me when I was little vocally. Like, my favorite Disney movie is Sleeping Beauty because they had an opera singer cast as the voice of the princess. And that was really where my love of opera started, was with Sleeping Beauty.
See? Right here. I just learned that. I did not know that about you. I was going to ask. That was my next line of questioning was, when, like, people don't know this as much about you as I do. You have a phenomenal opera voice.
Aww,
I've been to some very intimate sessions of, like, you know,
Oh, you
rehearsal.
used to come with me to my voice lessons.
Yes, I did. And I got to witness that, and I've heard you perform some opera stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it's magical to me. It's weird because as a human being, I never was like, "Fuck, I love opera." You know, like, it's not something that I just like gravitated towards. But when I heard you sing it, it was like, wow! I've never heard a person do that, like, for real.
Wow,
and
shucks.
I'm not trying to like you know.
Suck my proverbial D.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. But I'm, just to be genuine, I was shocked at how amazing you sounded, and it was really bizarre because it was like a different part of you, and that person isn't gone, but she morphed in a beautiful way because your opera, like, you focus on all this training and all this work and effort to be
years
great.
of work.
I mean,
you
took
years
what,
of work.
15 years of lessons? Is that a right number?
Well, I started taking voice lessons when I was little. I took a few with one of the teachers in my town, but I didn't really like doing it and whatever. And then in 2001, I met my voice teacher, Jack Windsor Hansen of Hammond, Indiana. He recently passed away this year, which was really hard and sad. And that's actually a really interesting coincidence. Sarah knew Jack as well. She took lessons with him, and I think she stopped taking lessons right before I started taking lessons with him. So we just missed each other in 2001.
That and that's, we could spend a lot of time on that discussion too, of how I feel like your friendship and everything that we've all shared has been like destined.
I completely agree.
You and
because
Sarah
and I should have met probably like 15 years ago.
In so
and
many
we would have been
situations.
friends,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we went to the exact same show at the Metro, Cursive.
Not a comment. It's not like everybody's gearing up to go to Cursive. I'm sure.
Well, I was, but yeah,
I
know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, we both have I have a Cursive tattoo. That's how much I loved Cursive at the time. And I still do. I love Cursive. But yeah, we were at the same show, didn't meet. We had the same music instructor and didn't meet. And we hung around the same areas. We liked the same shitty music, and it wasn't meant to be until it was meant to be.
That's perfectly said.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's like the beginning of the story again, is how odd, October 18th of is that 2014? Holy hell. That day, poof, everything expands on a whole different level.
Yeah, meeting you definitely changed my life.
I mean, I don't think I could say it any
in the
better.
best way.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're gearing up, you were talking about taking lessons with Jack.
Yeah.
And that was a very cool experience to sit in on a couple of your lessons.
I'm so glad that you got to come with me to that and meet him before he passed away, because he was like a grandfather to me and was so special. And I took lessons with him religiously for years, and he was really important to me. So I'm really glad that you got to meet him and be there and
got to make it kind of really a hilarious memory with him.
Oh my God, this is probably one of my favorite memories of Jack. We took him to we were driving him to my last recital with him.
Correct.
And I hadn't done a recital in a long time because I was a stay-at-home mom, and I had kind of given opera up in 2013. I think that was the last thing I did operatically, was down in Indianapolis. And I was just kind of done with it, and I wanted to do one last recital with him, and I knew it was going to be my last one with him because he was very old, and I just knew what was coming, so I decided to do it and put myself out there one more time. And so we're driving to this recital, and Nate's driving, Mr. Hansen's in the front, and Sarah and I are in the back. And you should probably tell the rest, because what I witnessed... Just go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to make one tiny correction to the story, because this is actually after the recital. We had done the recital. This is
on the way home.
On the way to drop Jack off.
Okay.
And we're driving. It's getting dark around. I look over. I'm driving. I look over. And all of a sudden, I see a spider drop down off the ceiling, like right in front of my face.
Right.
And I can't panic because I'm behind the wheel of a vehicle, and I have an old man in the front seat with me who's fragile. And I don't know what to do, but I'm like, if I can just get it on the floor, he'll go away. If I can just put it
out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind. This fucking spider can just live on the floor and he'll be great. So I do the thing that I have learned to kind of do, and I go up above the spider and I grab its web and I fucking threw it on Jack. I didn't mean to throw it on Jack. That wasn't my intent.
Did you panic?
I did, because the fucking spider started moving at me. And I was like, this spider is angry and he's mad.
So
and
you
I
panicked and you threw a spider on Jack.
Well, it might have landed on Jack. It could have landed on the floor. I know I aimed at the floor, but it's a floating spider. He could have went anywhere.
Oh my God.
But I didn't say anything.
Right.
I'm just driving like this, like mouth closed.
Trying not to die
the
laughing.
whole time. We drop Jack off. Have a lovely night, Jack. It was an awesome recital. You did great. Yeah. There were some other students Jack had that were there as well, and that was awesome to experience. And it's really cool to have brushed shoulders with him in my life, because, he was a pupil of one of Debussy's pupils. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing that classical music
Jack
has got so close to me.
He was amazing.
He wrote a
was
book.
So talented. He wrote a book, Requiem for a Diva. It's the Sybil Sanderson story. It's a story about a famous opera singer. And he spent years and years and years of his life researching this woman and meeting with her family and going through her things. And he was related to her through marriage. Oh. So, he was just such a dedicated artist and poet and, pianist. He was a concert pianist for years, a famous one in the 50s and 60s. Yeah, so, that was a funny memory.
Well,
the spider.
We drop him off to kind of tail the story around, because I'll never forget this. We drop him off, and then there's silence. I back out of the alley. Mm-hmm. We get to, the T, and I guess in my mind I didn't want to say anything till I, knew for a fact he couldn't hear me, which he already probably couldn't.
Well, yeah, since he was down the street.
So I'm like, guys, I have to tell you something. I panicked, and I threw a spider on Jack. And you fell out. I don't think I've heard you laugh that hard, probably ever. It was a pretty hilarious moment, really. It
was really funny. That was a great moment.
So, that is a great story. You said something along the line that I want to jump into. you, and as detailed as you'd like, because I don't know what the process or anything is like. I don't think we've really super discussed it, but you tried out for the lyric, right? Or was it something like that, right?
I auditioned for the lyric opera twice. And it wasn't a very good experience for me. I was very nervous, and I was not confident in myself because I never went to a conservatory. I didn't do all of the traditional steps that you need to do in order to become an opera singer.
There's like a hierarchy.
And opera is a very, very limited world run by old white dudes. And as far, I mean that just based on my own personal experiences.
Well, if you want to get into it, I would love to hear what the experience was like.
Well, my favorite old white dude, Jack, convinced me that I was ready and talented enough and capable to audition for the chorus at the Lyric. And there was this thing, it was called the Ryan program, and it was like a young artist thing where they train you to become members of the chorus. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you can become invited to be a principal singer. And so that's the steps that you have to do. And in order to get into the Ryan program, like, you have to have already been a professional fucking singer your entire life, essentially, in my opinion. And I just was really going into that with a lot of self-doubt because I didn't go to a conservatory. I didn't go to music school. I went to Purdue and for history, and I didn't get to finish my degree because it was just too much money. And it just wasn't in the cards, at the time. So I don't think I did bad at either of my auditions. Obviously, it wasn't what they were looking for, as it didn't work out, but I didn't noticeably fuck up or anything, but I just wasn't feeling good about it. And I kept thinking about what Jack wanted my life to look like, and if I wanted my life to look like that, and I didn't. So I stopped doing it, and I just did recitals. And then an opportunity came along through one of his other students that was in this intimate opera of Indianapolis company, and we went down, me and Jack and my ex-husband at this point, we drove down to Indianapolis and went and saw a production that they did. And it was so cool and really fun and sweet, and I loved it, and Jack loved it, even though I did see him fall asleep a little bit because he was, older and tired. But, so I met with the people that ran that, and they gave me the information for an audition for their upcoming season, and I ended up getting a gig through them that ran for 2 weeks in Indy, and it was really fun. And it was just selections from different operas. It was called Love is a Battlefield, and it was all these different love songs from different Broadway shows and operas and stuff. And it was really cool. Like, what they're doing down there is really interesting, trying to bring opera to people that normally wouldn't be interested in seeing it, and making it fun and for everybody.
Accessible opera.
Yeah, making it accessible. That's what they do. So check them out online, by the way. Intimate Opera of Indy.
So you did opera until something happened in your life.
Yeah, the intimate, it was at the Indy Fringe Theater. That was my last performance operatically, because then I found out that I was going to have a baby.
Yeah, and I would be completely foolish to not mention how much Oliver also has changed my life. Because I've been around him since he was just a little under a year old, and it's completely bizarre to me how cool and smart your kid is.
Aww.
He's definitely a reflection of his mom.
Well, thanks.
So,
yeah, he's my little sweetheart. Oh my God, I love that kid to death. He's amazing. And so, I wanted to have a baby very badly. I always wanted to have kids and to be a mom. That was a big priority for what I wanted my life to be. And so I found out I was expecting, and I went to a few more voice lessons here and there throughout my pregnancy. And then once Oliver came, everything changed. And my priorities shifted to being a stay-at-home mom, and that's all I was doing, was being at home with him, taking care of my baby. And I am so grateful that I had the opportunity to do that and have that time with him, because it was really special. And it was really hard because my ex-husband had a job where he was gone all the time. And I was by myself with my baby all the time. And I wasn't by myself all the time. My family lives in my town, and I have a huge family, and everybody was so great and came over and hung out with me and took care of Ollie if I needed to take a shower or a break or whatever. But it just got really hard, and I kind of got really sucked into being a mom. And I don't regret it for a minute, obviously, but I did go back for a few voice lessons here and there after Ollie was born. It just was too difficult to maintain it as much as I was doing it. So I just kind of let it go.
It was it was not probably until you met me that the shift would happen kind of again, because you had kind of lost the drive to perform and stuff. And little do we know that, again, to the very beginning of the podcast, this meeting, this one day, sets everything in motion, and we're going to now kind of get into the band that we share together. And it's only been a little over a year of performing. We've been hard at work honing this thing for about 2 years. I want to say, from my perspective of the day that we met, this is something that I will just hold on to it forever. Because we were standing in line at Bombers, you were going to order some to-go food, because I think we all ate together, and then you were ordering.
I didn't eat with you. You guys ate before me, which I was kind of bummed about.
Well, we didn't know you, and we didn't. Brandon is kind of like that too. He's hungry. Get out of his way.
Yeah, I know that about Brando. I know. But you can't fuck with Brando and Bombers.
Correct. So.
But I was running late that day because my dog had pissed all over my kid's car seat, and I had to clean that up.
And I remember that too, because that was like one of the first things you said, like, I'm gonna have to get rid of my dog.
Yeah.
On my kid's car seat. You of course didn't end up getting rid of Benny.
No, I didn't end up getting rid of Benny. But my ex really wanted to get rid of that dog.
But I was standing with you in line at Bombers because you were going to take off, and you're ordering food. We were talking a little bit, and you're like, yeah, I might try out for this band. I got a couple friends who are doing this band thing, whatever. And I just went, why don't you just come hang out with us? And it was like, I was trying to make this friendship happen because I just kind of, I felt it. It's weird. I felt it. Like, that's all I can say. So the universe says, like, fucking tell her to just hang out with you guys. And so I said it. And I don't know if you knew how serious I was, but, like, I was very persistent. And I finally, in December, got you out of your house, and you came where we're recording.
Like I said, I was in mom mode. Correct. I wasn't looking to make new friends at the time, and because I know how demanding being a stay-at-home mom is, and I didn't have time for people. I lost almost every single one of my friends that I had before I had my son. Is gone to the wind. Once that's like the dirty little secret of adulthood that nobody tells you about when you have a kid. All your friends will kind of just fade away, and the important ones stay,
So doesn't that mean then that the important ones are actually your friends, and everybody else was just, collateral damage, as it were?
I guess. I mean,
it's an unfortunate way to look at things.
It's a bleak way to look at it, but I just felt like motherhood was very, very lonely, which is why I ended up, deciding, hey, maybe I guess I will just come and hang out with them. My other friend our mutual friend was coming over, and I was like, all right, I'll just go and make friends. Yeah. So I did. And
it was great. Brando was here, actually. And I think Kate, Silent Rob was here, Gretchen.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was kind of like a kind of a big ordeal.
And that was the first time I met Sarah.
And it was the first time you met Sarah, and of course you guys immediately hit it off with this friendship. You had so many things in common.
She was so crabby. She was eating fried chicken from KFC, but she was like super sick, so she was being super crabby.
Yeah,
and I was like, this girl's hilarious.
Yeah, she gets, look, that's two things. She has bad luck with food.
I know, she does.
And okay, Sarah is the person you could cook 300 chicken McNuggets from McDonald's, serve them all to her,
and she'll eat the one with the gristle in it.
Correct. Mm-hmm. The first one. Mm-hmm. Every time. 100% of the time.
I know.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah, so that was the first time I met her, was at that little shindig you had.
Yeah, and then from there it was just like it kind of became a thing where we were wanting to kind of see each other a lot more, hang out more, do whatever we could do, watch stuff, be nerdy, because that's another thing you and I have in common. We have a lot of different nerddoms that we share.
Correct, which is why we have a podcast.
Correct, foodies watching movies. The thing to me that I felt that is funny to mention is how early JIC was when I met you and where it is now. And you're like, it's hard to think of Journey into Comics and not immediately associate that you were a part of all of it, just because of, like, I met you 6 months after the second episode, to put it into time frame perspective.
Right.
So, and we weren't even, I mean, that October was the first time we decided, like, we'll do 4 shows this month, 1 for every week. Let's see if we can do it. And we did.
Yeah.
And then now we do it every week. And now we have a network and do too many shows like this one. I don't even care. But, you know, the budding friendship was great. And then it was crazy because you and Sarah actually made this really cool decision to start performing music together.
Yeah, we figured we're both classically trained musicians and we need money, so what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
So we formed this little duo, Diamond and Fang, and we played a couple of places, a couple of parties, 2 Halloween parties. That was really fun. And we just did piano vocal covers of different Halloween-y sounding songs.
You guys had a really amazing playlist. You guys put
We did. We made a great playlist, which we should probably post on your Voice of Survival Instagram so everybody could see.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Because it was pretty good.
We
had Bowie on there, and we had CCR, and
it's funny to think about, like, Diamond and Fang, and that time in our life is like a blip on the radar.
Yeah, that was it came and gone. It came and went quickly.
But to think about that time, it's like we're grooming ourselves for the inevitable, because I'm loading all the gear into the truck.
Yeah,
taking you guys
being
to
the roadie.
gig, you know, it's helping set up, running sound.
You were like our manager.
I did a little bit of managing and kind of dipped my pinky toes back into interacting with people and sounding quasi-professional in a rambling email where I'm not sure if I'm talking like a coherent human or not. But
well, that's one of the things that I like about you, Nate, is you're a doer. You make things happen. I like that. It's nice.
I've found the unfortunate truth in life is if you sit on your ass and wait for the thing to happen, it probably won't.
Right.
And
you got to put in the work and the effort, and
and I think that a lot of people, I think, and just, you know, just to kind of riff for a second, I think that people struggle with seeing a big picture and then being able to focus on the map in front of them. Mm-hmm. And those are 2 very different things. You have to be aware that looking at the big picture sometimes might get dark. Mm-hmm. And it might feel like it's light years away from you. But as long as you're focused on the map that you know is in front of you, that you're laying for yourself, and you believe in your steps, failures and successes or otherwise, as long as you believe in yourself, you're just going to keep driving forward. And that's kind of a philosophy that has just been instilled in me from, you know, growing up with my dad and just kind of the situations we were put into.
Right.
And it was really weird because I met you and we have so many parallels. You know, there are a lot of similarities to our lives and our journeys and whatnot.
We do.
And it's really funny because we both are musicians who started playing the exact same instrument, almost like the exact same instrument. Because you played a Warlock guitar, right?
Yeah, I did.
And I had a Warlock bass.
Yeah.
And you actually, your first band gig when you were like 14? What was that?
15? Oh, my shitty punk band?
Yeah. Oh, no, I was... bass.
When I played bass?
Yeah. Right?
I played guitar. I played guitar in the shitty punk band.
Oh, I thought for some reason
I had
bass.
to teach my friend to play the bass line for the 2 songs that we played at the skate park when I was like 16.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll give you the picture. You can put it up. It's pretty funny.
Yes, please do. That's amazing. I didn't know there was photographic evidence of
There
your
is.
gig.
There's even video, but I'm not giving you that.
And it's funny to mention video. I just found some Draxus tapes that are
You
at your
did,
house right
and
now.
you showed it to me, and it was adorable.
It was really weird.
Shout out to Baby Brando.
Yeah, Baby Brando.
And Baby Nate.
Baby Nate. The old skating rink show. Wow, that was
really funny to watch.
That was 12 years ago. Feels like a lifetime and change ago. But want to get back to the music. You did this shitty little punk band.
I did a shitty little punk band. We had like 2 shows at the local skate park in my town. I used to like to skateboard. I wasn't very good, but I did it anyway.
Did you ever hurt yourself?
No, I didn't.
Awesome. Good job.
I never hurt myself. The only cool thing I could do was go down the half pipe, and that was it.
I couldn't do that. I sucked at skateboarding.
I could never figure out how to do like an ollie or anything like that.
You mean you call me Calamity Nate for a reason? Me
That's
on a
true.
skateboard is Damage Incorporated.
That is terrible idea. Yeah. But we played the Pixies. We played Gigantic. That's what we played. We played Gigantic, and we played a metric song, but I can't remember the name of it.
How was that experience for you?
At that show, though, I wasn't playing my Warlock. I was playing my hot pink Fender Strat that my dad had given me. That was his from like 86 or 87 or something like that.
Wow.
I can't remember. Yeah. It was his hot pink Fender from the 80s.
What was that experience like? Playing okay.
That was my first taste of playing in a punk band, and I fucking loved it. It was so fun. And I loved all the grungy, scurvy-looking kids just jamming.
Did you have a pretty okay crowd?
Yeah.
Did you guys sound okay?
Yeah. Probably not. I don't know.
You threw it together, you said, pretty quick.
Oh, it was like 3 days before the thing. I learned how to play the guitar on that song.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Like, for real. It's
and
interesting,
the person
too.
who was going to drum couldn't do it, so we had our buddy Jerry do it, and he actually did good. Oh, yeah, we played that song Maps by the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, because we had a guitar, drums, and keyboard at that show.
Oh, interesting. Keyboard making a early fixture in your musical journey.
Wow, I wouldn't have even
And punk.
thought about
and
it.
Piano.
But yeah, my friend Haley was in my band with me and our other friend Crystal, and she was playing the keyboard, and we were doing shitty covers. But it was great. I loved it, and it was so fun. And that kind of planted like the seed of wanting to keep doing that.
Yeah.
It was just that one wasn't meant to be. There was so many band opportunities that came up when I was in high school, like, oh yeah, we need a keyboard player for this band. You want to do it? And I'd be like, okay, and I'd come and we'd have like one practice, and they'd be like, I don't know, like they'd get all intimidated or something and like scared of me because I was a girl and they're whoever, and other ones would be like the guitar players would be just way too ego driven and it's like, no, it's kind of, we just want like background noise, and I'm just like, okay, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, that seems to be a very interesting theme with ego-driven guitar players. I know because at one point in my life I was a little bit of an ego-driven guitar player.
I was never an ego-driven guitar player because I only played rhythm guitar. I never liked playing lead guitar.
I'm not talking about even being a lead guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying I was a guitar player, but I was also a lead singer. So the ego was kind of just like second nature.
Right.
But of course that all changes. So I will never ever, and I think that's another theme I'm going to say I'll never forget. And this is record that, damn it, Nate, you will never forget because I'm saying it here on the podcast.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here one day, and Sarah comes to me and she says, hey, I want you to play drums. And I just kind of giggled. I was like, we don't even have drums. Like, what are you talking about? Play the drums. What the fuck? Like, come on now. I play guitar. Mm-hmm. Come on, be real. And she's like, listen, here's my idea. And she's like, and this is like the bare bones, the first sketch of the idea. She goes, you on drums, me on piano. Maybe I can get Rob to do bass. We'll do Misfits songs. It'll be radical. And I was like, yeah, I like that idea, who's going to sing? And I was like, because I can do it. I have to learn how to drum, but I can probably sing and play drums. I can sing and play guitar. Can't be that much different. It is, but So I was like, what about V? Like, why don't you guys have Diamond and Fang already going?
Mm-hmm.
Why not her?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, yeah, I'll ask her. I just don't think she'll do it. She sings opera. Why would she do shitty punk songs? And I was like, we should try. I think that's a smart play. And boom, that's the spark. The sketch that we came up with that day is the band.
Yeah.
I mean, when it started, of course, you were learning Graves era Misfits, which is a whole different thing than what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And
that's
coming out of your shell from being an opera singer.
Yeah, that was really fun for me. That was really difficult for me. I don't know if you know this about me, but I have terrible stage fright. Like, I have a horrible, horrible phobia of performing on stage, which is interesting as I'm a lead singer and have been a musician my entire life. But that's why I do it, because the more I do it, the less scary it is. Like, now, thinking about going and doing a show, no problem. I can do it. It's fine. But
if we would have tried to start gigging back in those days.
Oh, fuck no. No. I wouldn't have been, I wasn't ready. And I still don't feel like I've gotten to my peak. I feel like I'm still growing and evolving and figuring out what my true voice is, as my mom would call it. And just figuring out what kind of music I want to make and how I like to sing. And I don't like conforming to any one genre because I like so many different things. And I'm physically capable of performing in a ton of different genres that I like. So why not do that, you know?
I think that it was really interesting, and I want to know from kind of your perspective this, because I know from our side it was like, we're going to ask V to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
When we present this to you, what even went through your head? Because the concept is strange, and it's like I said, you and Sarah had been performing as Diamond and Fang. It had almost been like a calendar year of working of Diamond and Fang, leading up to this what we're going to call the major shift. Well,
I think Sarah and I got really tired really fast of the Diamond and Fang thing because it was not what we wanted to be doing. It was marketing ourselves to play wedding receptions or country clubs or jazz at restaurants, when yes, we are capable of doing those things, and sure, maybe it could make us money if we really commit to doing it and put our all into it and market it, but we didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I didn't like how it made me feel when I was doing it because it wasn't good. You know, it was I didn't have any passion for it. I didn't give a fuck about it. So when you guys were talking to me about this band idea, I thought this is definitely something I could get behind, because I feel like the past 10 years of my life, I've been a completely different person that I thought I was going to be. And the person that I was 10 years ago was this person that would totally be in a punk band and have fun and, you know, try to make that life work. And when you guys talked to me about this band, I wasn't that person. I had been a mom for a couple years, and I had been married and had a home and have had jobs and stuff like that. You know, I wasn't in that place. But when we got tired of the Diamond and Fang thing, I really felt like I was ready to get back to myself and back to my roots and who I wanted to be. So I just decided to do it. And I've always loved punk music, and I love horror punk, and it was like a little omen. I was digging around in my car, and I found my old Misfits lighter from high school when I bought it at like Hot Topic or something, and I was like, oh, it's a sign.
You still have it in your car?
It's still in my car. It doesn't work. It hadn't worked in a long
Symbolic.
time. But I keep it in there. Yeah.
It's symbolism.
Yeah, it's just funny coincidences like that keep propelling me to do what we're doing.
So I want to talk about a funny story that happened at one of the band practices.
Okay.
Before we introduced the other element of you being in the band. Because it's interesting. I don't think a lot of people know this because we spent a whole year honing the sound of Walk Among Us. And in doing that, we went from you just singing to now you sing and do the dirty piano thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, that's you singing has evolved so much from all the way at the beginning, which I have old, like, the day one practice tapes. I still
You do?
have them. Oh, yeah, I still have them.
It's adorable. We should watch it.
Yeah, I think that's when I wanted to call us Die Monster Die. Luckily, I didn't. There's already a band called Die Monster Die. But I do have the first practice taped, and it's rough because we're figuring it out. But
How funny.
I will never forget. It was like we were probably 2 months into practicing. We were setting up for rehearsal one day. It had snowed. And Sarah walked into the bedroom. Do you remember this?
No. I don't.
And she screamed.
Oh, the snake?
There was
Yeah.
There was a baby snake in the bedroom.
under her like pillow in your bedroom.
That sounded funnier than it was. There's a baby snake in the bedroom. Okay. Maybe, yeah, okay.
No, there was a snake in there.
So I had to wrangle the snake and throw it in the snow, which I felt bad for because I probably killed that snake. But
well,
so
circle of life, man.
We got to fast forward the kind of the boring time of like gearing up to.
I do think it's pertinent to say that we initially weren't thinking that Walk Among Us was going to be like what it's become. Like Sarah had the idea to do a Halloween show.
Correct.
It was like August. We started talking about it. Let's just do a Halloween show. It's all Misfits covers, and then it just evolved into, this is fucking rad. We have to do this all the time.
Yeah.
And then it just evolved into this whole Danzig thing to where we just do Danzig sets, and we're starting to pepper and sprinkle in actual Danzig songs in our Misfit sets, and I love it. I think it's precious and hilarious and so fucking cool.
It's different than anything else going on.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It makes me so happy to get up on stage with my best friends and scream about dumb shit, and people like it. Because we still have the pianos. It's still kind of classy, but mostly trashy and whatever.
That's a good tag.
Yeah.
Kind of classy, mostly trashy.
Yeah, trash piano.
So I want to speed forward a little bit into, we were at probably July of 2016, and the itch to start playing kind of hits us. And we're like, we should try to like get a show together, and we're all like, please, we need to play music now, like it has to happen.
Yeah, we were ready. We were ready to put ourselves out there.
And you were like, I think I needed to play an instrument. And we were like, what? You were like, I don't feel confident being on stage yet. I'm not sure. I need something in front of me. A ukulele, anything.
I needed to hide behind my piano a little bit.
You just needed to find yourself on stage again.
Right, and I really wanted to have another element to our sound that we were making, because to me it was sounding empty. It wasn't sounding as full as we wanted it to.
And I don't remember who...
Because we don't have any guitars in our band.
That's very important to say. You're
right.
correct. Fuck guitars.
Well,
but
not
really.
Fuck guitars, but for what we were doing, we wanted it to be just pianos, bass, and drums.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I want to, I can't remember who exactly says it, but someone goes, what about V on another piano? Let's set up the P80.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was you or Sarah or somebody. Somebody said it. It doesn't matter. We set it up immediately. But to take it one further, Rob was like, this is a cool idea. Next week I'll bring some of my pedals.
Right.
And here is something that I think is very important to the story is the last week of July of 2016, you send me this thing like, hey, this place is looking for bands to open for the Ataris. We should try to do this. holy shit, that's amazing. And I was like, I actually fucking dig the Ataris. Like they did that Boys of Summer cover, and that's the only song of theirs I know. So it's not even their song. And I'm being totally honest, but I absolutely love that cut.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
that was
yes.
a band from my youth.
Yeah,
the Ataris.
So I was like, sure, I'll try to get us a show with the Ataris.
Mm-hmm.
And I put ourselves out there. I did. I sold us with no demo, with nothing. No one had any proof of what we were going to sound like.
Right, because this was our first show.
And I'm like, look, it's 2 pianos, bass, drums, vocals galore. It's different, I promise. Not like what you're expecting. And they were like, sure. Here's the deal, though. You got to sell a bunch of tickets. I think we had to sell 30 tickets.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember.
Fuck y'all. We sold 40 because we're the best. Because that's how we roll.
40 whole tickets.
Hey, first show, 40 tickets. That's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, there was a good amount of people at our first show.
And I kind of felt a little less than that night because everyone else had family that was there but me.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm not saying that in any bad way,
Well, your family lives far away.
They do live far away. So it was my first experience performing not in front of someone I knew.
Right.
And I'm in a room of pretty much strangers and drums, and it's all a whole new experience. And like,
yeah, I don't think you get enough credit for all the shit that you do, Nate.
The lights go on, and it's like, oh shit, we're starting, and we start the Kong at the Gates thing. And by the time we hit Forbidden Zone, I think I was adrenaline shot, just rah, like jacked to the max,
Right.
We power through the set, and I want to kind of go back and ask, like, how was that experience for you? Your first actual taste performing in a punk band again, like, so kind of back to your roots, in a whole new environment, after years of operatic training.
Yeah.
And you close the set with what I started to kind of quickly realize was the bread and butter of what we could do, which was the Danzig stuff.
Yeah.
And you hadn't honed the Tiny Danzig yet, but you were gearing up for it. And I want to know that first show back, like, where was your head at?
Wow. I was really nervous because I had a lot of friends and some of my family came. And I just didn't want to embarrass myself because my aunt was there, my mom was there, my other aunt was there, 2 of my younger cousins were there. I mean, it was 21 and older, but and then a bunch of my friends came, and some of my mom's friends came, and my stepdad came, and I just was like, am I going to be able to sing these horrible lyrics in front of my mother and my aunts and my stepdad?
I'm so glad that you brought up the lyrics.
But I did it.
Oh, no, you keep going. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, I just, that was a really surreal experience for me. Not only because I have stage fright, but I feel like as a professional musician, I'm able to tap into the place that I need to when I'm about to do something important so I can get it done. And I felt like I was able to get it done. And I felt a ton of adrenaline afterwards. I felt really happy. I was super pissed that the sound was as shitty as it was because everybody kept saying, I wish I just could have heard you. I wish I could have heard you. The drums and everything was so loud. I wish we could have heard you. But that's something that we deal with a lot with our band because we don't have guitars. People don't really understand how to mix us with our pianos, and it just takes a little extra effort on our part to get the sound right before the shows, and that's what comes with experience and doing as many shows as we've done now. We know how to get that sounding right, so that kind of thing doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's been an interesting thing in the journey as well, is learning how to tell people this is how we need to fucking sound.
Right, and a lot of times the sound guys that are there aren't the usual sound guys for the venue. It's always, oh, well, the sound guy couldn't make it. Our buddy's stepping in, and they don't know what they're doing, and they feel terrible because they know they're making us sound like shit, and that's happened a couple of times. But, this is punk rock. You just fucking do it and have fun, and it doesn't matter,
Yeah, one show to the next, people are only going to remember, like, the thing that's memorable, and as long as you're having fun and they can connect with that, I think.
Right, and every show we've played has been pretty fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's always a blast.
Yeah.
And that was my conversation with V. Man, that's a fun one to look back on and just reminisce about doing that show. Again, I was still very green on episode 5 of The Voice Survival, so you can still kind of hear me starting to evolve the show and try to find my voice in doing this podcasting thing. Up next, the last one of this episode, folks, and we're just going to let this thing play out. You're not going to hear me come back after this. So before we go, I want to say thanks, everybody, for tuning into The Voice of Survival every other Friday right here on the Journey into Comics Network at journeyintocomics.com. You can get us on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, Spotify, CastBox, and many others. Just search Journey into Comics Network on those services. That's where you'll find us. Also, please go to patreon.com/Journey into Comics. Give us $1 for early access or exclusive content, depending on how you're feeling. And there's also other tiers there, $5 sticker tier, $10 something else tier, t-shirt tier. We have a lot of shit there, man. I'm just waiting for y'all to get in on it because there's some cool incentives for you all. So without further ado, before we get out of here, this is my interview, well, a portion of it anyways, with the lovely Sara VanLaningham. Take it away, Me from the Past.
And one of my coworkers approached me, and she's like, "Hey, VanLaningham, you're a singer, right?" Right?
I love that.
And I'm just like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What's up?" Because I had just gotten out of college. Like, it was the summer after I graduated. I had no musical prospects at this point.
Gotcha.
I had no clue what I was doing.
You're fresh out of college and looking
I'm just like,
in a
cool.
field.
I'm just like in Chicago. I'm waiting tables. I'm living here. Like, this is great. I'll find something. And my coworker Tracy came up to me and she's like, "So my boyfriend's band is looking for a singer. And like, I hear you singing around, walking around here. So I know you got some chops, right? Like, do you want to like come hang out with my boyfriend and like, see if it would be a good fit?" I'm just like, oh, okay, sure. Why not? Like, I didn't know.
Whatever.
I was just like, yes, please. Like, please pick me. So I contacted him and we got together one afternoon and just kind of jammed on some Beatles tunes. And
Cool.
I played him a couple of the songs I had written because at that point I wrote a couple more instrumental pieces, couple lyrical things. And at the end, we were probably hanging out for like 5 or 6 hours, and we were just hanging out. Like, he had his acoustic guitar, and I just had my piano, and we just kind of learned some covers. And at the end, he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I want you to be in my band. Like,
Sold.
so I'm like, okay, so like, what do I do? What does that mean? What?
What does that entail? What
like,
have you just hired me for?
Okay. So he had a band, and it was called the Devilish Winks. And at that time I think it was only a 4-part group, if I remember. But it was already existing. It had already been in existence for like a year.
Okay.
And the one female singer that was in there, her name was Kylie. She either moved or went back to school or something, and she had to drop out. And then that's where I stepped in.
Your opportunity arises. Yep.
So I just started going to rehearsals, and Neil sent me charts for the already existing songs that they were working on. And I just kind of dove in. And it was really, really stressful at first for me because I didn't know how to collaborate with musicians at that point. I didn't know how.
It's a foreign language,
I had no idea. Like, because I worked with my ensembles at school, and, basically I was handed a lyric sheet. They tell me to learn a part, and I learn it by ear, and then we put it together and perform it at a recital. Woo! Go me! I got a gold star on my report card. But, like, it was a completely different realm for me at that point, and I knew I could play piano, and I knew I could sing, and I felt comfortable with my skill set at that point. But when it came to working with other people, I was so shy at first. Like, I became really good friends with Neil, like, right off the bat, and I
kind of like would only talk to him most of the time at practice because like I didn't know these other guys. I didn't feel like I fit in.
You hadn't yet meshed with them or had any
right.
experiences.
I didn't let
with them,
see my weird side yet.
Yeah,
Like because when
totally.
you get comfortable with people after a while, then you like okay, I can be myself finally. But like those first couple rehearsals, the bassist that we played with at first, he had a rehearsal space that was kind of like in the basement of like a parking garage. And like, it was this dingy little, like you go through this, you go into this garage and then there's this side entrance and then it was just this dark room and like there were these weird lights up and there were just amps everywhere. And I walked in and it was just like this musty place, right?
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing. Like, no clue.
Did you ever go, I hope I don't get murdered today? Like, when you walk into this dungy building?
Yeah.
Like, because I would have been like, what the fuck is this?
Like, and when Neil told me where it was, I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like, just tell me where to go. Like, I don't know. And I just remember after, like, our first couple practices, I felt like I was in the right place. Like, I felt like I was...
This is destined.
Okay, I'm going to be in a band.
Yes. Let's do this.
That should be what I do. So it just kind of snowballed from there,
You're funny. You said snowballed from there because I was going to just say your first show was Tonic Room, right?
Yes.
In wintertime in Chicago.
Yes.
And you just said snowball.
Ha-ha.
See how I did that? I wrapped it all
You
nicely.
silly.
I do. It's fine.
But let's see.
So you guys are practicing, obviously.
We're practicing, and most of the songs that we were learning were Neil's. And Neil would, give us all the charts, and we would, we practice and we would arrange and rearrange and fine tune and do that type of stuff. And I brought my 3 songs to the plate that I had written at that point. Because at that point, I had 3 songs to my name. That was it. And I told him, I'm like, do you want me to bring my music to this? Because I know this is your band and these are your songs. Am I allowed to bring my own things to have you guys learn? And I didn't know what the rules were to be in a band. I didn't know what we collaborate. We share ideas. What?
Yeah.
So I brought all my charts and I started teaching them my songs. And once we started arranging things, I had only heard my music on the piano before.
Oh.
I had never heard other instruments with it. I never heard other voices with it. And I didn't know what it felt like to hear it.
Overwhelming.
It was so overwhelming. And
absolutely.
I remember one of the songs, which was on our first album, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's called The Last Full Moon. And I strictly wrote it on piano at that point, and I had everything exactly arranged how I wanted it on the piano. And I remember there was one rehearsal that I just got really frustrated because I remember our former bass player kept wanting to rearrange my song and kept wanting to change it and make it a different song than what I had put together. And I didn't know what it felt like to have someone want to change what I did.
And it's hard to take because you almost feel like you're being
Right?
criticized, but it's not that. They're
wasn't.
trying to see if they can evolve it.
Oh, let's see what it sounds like this way. I didn't know what that was. What do you mean? Hear it a
No,
different
I don't
way.
want to hear it a
This
different way.
how
This
I
is how
hear
it is. Stop fucking with my song.
That wasn't me, trying to poo-poo his ideas. It just, I felt like he was attacking my music. And you get really, really
Attached.
sensitive.
Totally.
You get really sensitive to those things. And it took me a long time to let my babies, develop
Breathe
into what they are now on the album.
Absolutely.
So I just remember leaving that practice and I was just so mad. I talked to Neil about those feelings and stuff. And I told him, I'm just
bitch.
I did not like that. And just, it was frustrating. And it made me feel like I was the asshole in that scenario because I wasn't willing to, negotiate.
Or
I wasn't
try.
willing to try at that point. And it took me a while to feel like I could. Even though it was a safe space for ideas. It was
totally.
but in my in my head, I had never been told no like that, or I had never been told like, you can change these things.
You'd never been musically questioned.
Yes.
With your decisions.
Yes.
And your decisions weigh heavy when you're a songwriter.
Right.
Because it's like, I fucking did a lot of work to figure out how that was going to go.
And I didn't know how to collaborate with people.
And
it was stressful for me, like in those first couple months of like getting to know the guys in the band and just learning their playing styles and their level, their skill set.
Totally.
Because they were on a whole nother level than me.
Yeah.
Like some of them were in other bands already, and they were teachers. They were, they were just more established than what I did at that point. Because I was just a musical theater girl.
You were the rookie.
I was a choir girl.
Yep.
I barely even knew what it meant to be a front woman. Like,
did you get hazed at all? I don't feel like this is the kind of band
No.
that did that kind of thing.
No.
You guys are definitely a little more soulful and not like party animals or anything like that.
we were all, very respectful of each other.
That's good.
And it was fun. It was like those early rehearsals. Like you never forget those. It's like when you look at your time spent, because now it's been like 4 years almost that we've been doing
That's amazing.
this.
4 years and 2 albums already.
Yeah.
We'll get through those.
So like when I look back on those first rehearsals and I see what type of musician I am now, it's like I was like this scared little bumblebee that like didn't know what, like I was either afraid of being stung and I was afraid to sting other people at that point. Like I didn't know what it meant to take criticism. I mean, I learned how to take critiques in college and like, vocal work type of things, but it was never like, oh, I like your music. Like, let's try doing it this way, and like changing it and letting it morph into this being.
The musical exploration side of it, you were so attached to the idea.
Yes.
Totally.
And I had to like break down those musical barriers, so to speak, to let myself become a better songwriter.
Was that a difficult thing to do, to break down those barriers? Because I mean, I also have been in a couple bands and been a songwriter, and truth be told, I maybe at the time when I was in my first band, probably the worst collaborator because I liked a lot of my ideas and didn't want to hear everybody else. But I know that can be difficult to open yourself up and say, what if we explore it this way?
Yeah.
What if we do it that way instead? So what happens to make you go, sure, let's start changing my own concept?
It wasn't until I started writing new songs after that, because I had those first couple songs that we were working on.
Did all three make the
first album? Yes.
Cool. So it was
Hollow Bones, Last Full Moon, and Fog. Those were the first 3 songs that I ever fully arranged myself. And I had no idea what other instrumentation I wanted. I didn't know, that this song needed, a cello, or this song needed electric or saxophone or clarinet. Like, and in our band, we are a 6-piece band. It's piano, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, bass, drums, sax, and clarinet. So we have a wide range of sound that's happening, and I didn't know how to fit that puzzle together. I didn't know what to do. I had never done that.
Looking at a foreign language going, huh?
Right?
Like clarinet?
But it's like,
what?
we all knew it. We all knew that language.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to do. So it's like I had to have a sit down with myself, good old, talking to yourself and making yourself change. And I started writing new songs, and I'm just like, okay, so Sandy, when you bring this song to the band, tell them what instruments you hear and let them play.
And see what happens.
I had to like force myself.
Like, it's okay if they
that.
say it doesn't sound right, or we could do this
And
way.
it was really hard for me to let go of that power at first, because I felt like I didn't, and it wasn't that they weren't allowing me to have a voice at first, but I was so timid and I never spoke up for myself.
You didn't find your voice.
I never spoke up for myself
Yeah.
in those early rehearsals because I was still learning about them. I didn't, it's hard to trust people at first
or
with
being
your,
forceful.
with your babies, or, putting my foot into this band where I am, I'm bottom rung because I'm the new girl,
Rookie.
like I didn't know. So it's like when they would talk, I would listen to what they were doing, and they would be like, oh, well, how about, in this verse, we try it this way. And then we would go back and we'd play it a couple times, and would just establish things as they went along. So it was really like that first year in the band, I learned so much.
It almost had to be empowering to let go and let them take
hard.
some of the burden of writing these songs,
yes. though. Because at that point, I didn't consider myself a songwriter. I had written songs, but I didn't think I was a songwriter.
I understand that. I understand how that is. Yeah, absolutely.
Because some people can write lyrics, out their ass, and like they have, all of these words and no music, or they have all the music and no words. And that's where I started finding, both, right? So I would mostly work with Neil. We would have separate little rehearsals sometimes where we would work on our new songs together. And I'd be like, okay, so this is my new song. Like, these are my ideas for like backup vocals, this and that. So those rehearsals, I think, are what really helped me feel more confident in our main band rehearsals, because I was able to spew out my ideas to Neil, and we would be positive reinforcement, positive feedback, and it was constant building up.
And then you could refine
song.
It into what the band needed
because
to
I
know.
would establish my ideas, the bulk of my ideas, and I would develop how to talk about it to them, because I didn't know how to talk about my music. I didn't know how to talk about arrangements.
Yeah.
And like, oh, well, I think like, why don't we try to do this? And like, and like, I wasn't confident in myself. I wasn't confident in my abilities at that point, because I was just like, I was a baby bird. Like, I was just trying to figure it out. And, like, I don't know. So we would have these little rehearsals at times, and like, I'd bring my songs to him, and we would bounce ideas back and forth. And, when we would go into the practice room with everyone else, it was a much faster arranging process getting the new songs out, because we had already kind of not established what it was, but we had the ideas, like the root of the ideas there,
The first album was almost like training wheels.
Yes.
And the training wheels are off now. We understand the mechanism and the way to do this. Right. Let's go.
So like we had the 10 songs we decided to put on the first album. And when it came time to go into the studio, I had only been in the band 3 months. Like,
wow. So you're going into the studio ultra green, and you've never, of course, obviously probably ever recorded.
Never been in the studio.
Ooh.
Nothing.
That's a scary first experience.
Woo! And I had bronchitis the first day of the studio, which, hold on. We'll get to that.
Sure.
But, so we had established what songs we were going to take to the studio for the first time. And we discussed whether we were going to do an EP first, or if we were just going to go
do the
full album. And we decided, okay, we're going to do 10 songs. These are the 10 songs. We'll figure out the order, nonsense later. So we started, kind of fine-tuning our arrangements in the practice space. And we had played a couple shows at that point at the Tonic Room, and we had a residency there. So we had regular performing shows just to kind of get practice for the studio.
Totally.
So, and those shows were really fun to me, because like I never played on a Chicago stage like that. I didn't know. So it was a different experience, feeling the audience and feeling the reaction to what we were doing. Because
I remember your guys' first show at Tonic Room. It was incredible.
So fun.
It was fun.
Oh.
The only downside about the entire night, I will never forget this. I'll hold on to this with a bitter grudge. Was I ordered a goddamn, what was it, like a Red Bull and vodka?
Oh no!
And it was awful.
Oh no!
It was the worst drink I've ever had ever, and it was like $8.
That's why you don't. Yeah, energy drinks are just not for me.
Well, I don't drink energy drinks or pop anymore. So
well, that's good.
Yeah, that's 18 days. Well, by the time this recording has happened, it's like 24 days I'm without pop. So
excellent.
It's weird to time travel podcasts. You got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, so we had been playing the couple shows leading up to the studio, and we went in for that first session, and like I walked in, and we recorded at Uptown Recording in Chicago. And our engineer Rob is just a freaking wizard at what he does, and he made the process really welcoming, and just Like, he made it a very comfortable space.
It wasn't a
to work
burden
in.
for you guys.
It was just, I don't know. So the first day we just like laid down bass and drums for the bulk of the tracks. And we actually were really productive on our first day, that we got a lot accomplished. But what none of us really knew, because I think only a couple guys in the band had done studio work at that point, from what I remember. But I had never been in the studio before. I don't think Neil had. I think they had done like an EP. They did like an EP recording of some of the songs in the earlier Winx days.
Yeah.
But this was the first like full album that we were doing, right? And like on that first day, I just kind of sat and played behind the piano just to follow along with what they were doing. So they had
scratch tracks,
right?
Absolutely.
Things like that. But I didn't know what to expect when we went into the studio, honestly. I didn't know what it felt like to be in a vocal booth and to have vocal technique in a mic. I had never experienced that.
Oh, and hearing it like I'm doing now in the headphones and backing
Yeah,
up and getting
and
closer.
playing with a click track. Like, that was the thing I had to practice, and it actually made me better at rhythm because
it forced rhythm into you.
And it helped me internalize those things, and it made me fine tune my arrangements, because at that point I just kind of noodled around with Neil's songs on the piano, and like I just kind of came up with my own parts and stuff. And I wasn't as confident yet with like solidifying an arrangement of my own.
This is what I'm going to play.
Right? So when it came time to go into the studio, I had to do it. Like, I'm like, okay, this is my timeline. This is my to-do list. Okay, tomorrow I have to record 4 songs on piano. Okay, like, and it was very overwhelming at first, but once I got in the studio and like I sat behind the baby grand, like I felt it was right, you know? And when you start recording, like, something just kind of happens to your body. Like,
it does.
It's a really weird thing, because you're almost nervous like you're performing for like thousands of people, but you're not. And
I don't know what they call that, but it's like the red light syndrome. When you see the red light come on, it alters you, and it almost
it's go mode.
It causes fight or flight, because you're either gonna kick ass and go through the song and be a boss, or it's gonna kill you and you're not gonna get it. And some days songs defeat you. Game over. Just step away. You know.
And I found I'm actually a really good studio musician, because it didn't take me many takes to lay down my stuff, because I had finally like
fine-tuned
my ability to arrange what my hands were doing. And there were some times where I felt really bad about what I did.
You're like, no.
I'm just like, okay, like we did like 6 takes of this and I don't like any of them. Like, this is not good at all. But it was such a cool first studio experience. Like, I didn't know what to expect when I walked through those doors, and it was life-changing. Like,
absolutely.
Completely life-changing. And I remember we were laying down like vocal tracks, and my one victory on our first album, because I'll never forget it, when we recorded Wintertime in Chicago, my vocal track is all 1 take.
That doesn't surprise me.
And it was the first time I had done anything like that. Like, that was one of the first songs I recorded vocally. Like, I had done some of my backup tracks on some of Neil's songs, but for like the solo songs that I did, that was one of the first songs we laid down the rhythm tracks for. So we were able to do the vocals right away. And that was one of the few songs on the first album that I had, a solo. So I just like, we did the take and we listened to it, and I was like, I feel okay about that. Like,
should I do it again?
Like, so that was my one small victory that I felt.
So that was first take as well?
1 take. 1 vocal take.
Solo, 1 attempt.
There is 1
God, it's
track.
a goddamn good take too. Like,
I
love that song a lot.
Vocal.
Yeah. Do you guys really probably don't even play that song very much anymore, do you?
We only played it in wintertime.
Perfect.
Literally, like,
Makes
so there's
sense.
literally like 3 months out of the year we play that song live.
Have you guys thought about doing a fun variation on it called Summertime in Chicago?
I think Neil's actually working on like trying to make another bluesy,
Yeah.
like summertime version of it. But it's such a fun little track. But that was my first little victory in the studio that I felt like that was my next little confidence booster. I'm like, okay, I can record vocals. This is great. Like, check.
Score. We've won the day.
But
So that like hits you in a place where you're like, okay, I can do it. I can get behind the microphone. It doesn't take me a lot. I know what I'm doing with my voice. I've trained for this.
yeah, like I had the technique. I just gotten out of college. Like I knew how to sing. I knew how to do that.
It's like the
at least.
preparation plus the opportunity creates
Exactly.
the moment.
And I was really bummed out though because we added string parts to some of our tracks, which we don't perform live with string performers.
Okay.
Which we want to so bad.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a whole nother animal. We're already a 6-member band.
Not a lot of space.
To just tackle on like 7 more people on top of it. But we added viola and cello on our first album. And for my one song that I brought to the table was Fog. And I hated that song for the longest time.
Oh, no.
Until I brought it to the band. Because I wrote it, and I wrote it on piano, and I remember feeling like there were things missing, and it didn't make sense to me yet. And once we recorded it, I unfortunately couldn't be there the day that they did the string parts because I had to work. And I got to the studio that night as they finished tracking for it.
Wow.
And they finished, like I walked in right as they were like, you know, kind
We're
of
done.
tweaking things,
Yep.
and they were about to go take a smoke break. And like I walked in and I was all flustered because I had just gotten off work, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry I missed it. Like I really wanted to be here for this because this was my song, and like I wanted to be there for that
Absolutely.
process. And like it was really frustrating not getting to hear it and not being there. And like I remember I walked in, I got myself settled, and Rob, our engineer, said, oh, we just finished up. Like, I'm going to tweak these few things, then I'll hit play, and then we're going to go outside so you can listen to it. And I sat down in his chair where, you know, his screen of his giant screen and all of the speakers were like in the perfect circle around me. And I sat there, and he hit play, and they walked away. And as soon as it started playing, I bawled.
Oh.
Like, I started bawling.
'Cause it hit you.
It just... everything just sounded like perfect. Like
it was there.
Everything that I had heard in my head was there.
Good.
And like
Good.
that, I'll never forget that moment because I was just sitting there just listening to it, and I'm just like, this is my song.
And it actually is what you kind of heard without knowing that that's what you were
Yes.
hearing.
Like, that's it. Like,
There you go.
And it was just one of those moments that just like, it flushes over you and you remember it forever.
Oh,
Like-
absolutely, absolutely. And you'll never escape that moment because
Like, I'm tearing up thinking about it.
yeah,
Oh my God.
totally. It's and that's something you're very proud of too.
Yeah, that's
So
one of my
I'm going
babies.
to ask you a really interesting question. I've not actually asked a lot of musicians on the show this. You're now in your second album.
Yes.
Right? What is this experience like now? Being
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know, it's hard to top yourself. Like when you've, like that moment
Right.
you're talking about, that the fog moment, you're sitting in the chair. Now you're in the studio again.
Yeah.
You are developed with these guys. You guys
Right.
are vets together. You've done it. You've played shows. You've had success. Everything's kind of working. You go in the studio this time. Is it just like almost just going to work?
It was a much different experience the second
Sure.
time in the studio.
Sure.
Because we knew what Rob's process was for tracking and, you know, kind of building the song. Because none of us really, I mean, like we had ideas of how we wanted to track and stuff. But I didn't know. But when we went in the next time, we were much more methodical about it. And we were like, okay, well, we can just track these all together at the same time and play them live together. So on our second album, a lot of the songs, bass, drums, acoustic, and piano are all live together in one
And
go.
really getting it in
Yes,
the...
like it's a live performance almost. And then we would layer in electric and clarinet and like do all the
So does that make it easier for you then, because you're almost just jamming, and
it
as
was,
long as
it was
you're
a much faster process tracking
Cool.
this time.
Cool.
And then our vocals this time, Neil and I just sang them live together.
Sweet.
Because on the first album, Neil would do his part and then I would sing my backup with it, or I would sing my part and then Neil would do his harmonies. But this time we just set it up where we could see each other. We had vocal booths that were set up so
adjacent,
we, see each other. And we sang at the same time, and we were able to track our vocals like so quickly. It was different this time because we knew our arrangements and we had been playing together and we felt more comfortable.
So did you save money this time in the studio because it seemed to spend less time, or does it end up kind of?
I didn't know much about like the financials of it.
Oh, okay.
But this time it's based on how things were scheduled. It took us longer to make this one.
Oh.
The tracking process went really fast, but then once we got into mixing
and mastering sometimes can be a whole different beast.
Yeah, because when you have six cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Good grief, 6 kitchens in the cook.
It'd be a very large cook.
It would be a very large cook. But when you have all of those brains adding their ideas, it can start when you're fine tweaking things and like you want everything to be perfect.
And then somebody's like, "Oh, I'm not hearing myself enough. I'm not happy with it."
Right.
And it's like, "Look, I get that, but it doesn't serve the song."
We had to cut parts out to make room for other things, and we were much more adamant about the mixing process this time. I think we were better at it this time because
and you knew what you want.
Right. And like the first album, I didn't know what mixing was.
Yeah.
What I'm listening to my part. What do I need to listen for? What do you mean listen to the tracks and send you notes on it for things you want to change?
Like, is the bass loud enough? Are the guitars?
I hear my piano. Like my piano part's pretty solid. I'm okay with it.
And then they're like, no.
I didn't know. Like, what? What do you mean? I felt very dumb the first time. I was just like, what? What are these
But
questions?
you're learning, and that's
right.
and that's the trick of musicianship is just like to learn over time and through experience.
But yeah, the second time in the studio, we were better at expressing our ideas and making it happen, But yeah, was it when we recorded Wurlitzer Millie? That was my favorite song to record live in the studio.
I think we're going to put that at the end of this episode, actually.
Yes.
So people will be able to hear that.
Yes.
And it's cool because the story behind it, I want you to get into that, please.
Oh, I'm going to.
Okay,
it's my favorite story to tell because I had a
great.
very ethereal ghost experience in this house. So we're at Grandma and Grandpa's house.
Yeah.
You guys are living here. And the Wurlitzer is in the house. And it was set up in the living room over here. And you guys had to go out and like do something that day. Like you had errands to run, and I was just in town for a couple days, and I was staying here. And like Sarah was just like, "Oh, well, like, do you want to come with? Like, we're just kind of running around doing stuff." I'm like, "No, I'm just gonna hang out, watch TV, just kind of bum around the house." And you guys left, and I was just sitting here, and I was messing around on my phone or something, and I looked over, and the piano was screaming at me to say, "Oh, you haven't played me in a while. Come play the Wurlitzer.
Just touch these ivories.
Just like come play for a while," right? So I go over, and I didn't have any paper to like write on. I was just like noodling around on stuff, and I just started playing this song. And I was just like,
spews out of you.
I'm like, huh. So I started writing down what I was doing, and like I just started piecing it together, and when you have like one of those out of body experiences and like you see what you're doing, I felt like there was some type of energy in the house that was prompting me to write this song.
It was just like, this is what you need to be doing.
It was really weird. Like something took over my body and this song came out. And I still have the sheet of paper that I jotted down the chord progression on and like my ideas and stuff. And it was on the back of like a piece of sheet music from like an Amy Winehouse song. Like it was
awesome.
Because I think Sarah like made me a copy of something, and I just grabbed whatever sheet of paper I could find to like jot this down. And I wrote it all out. I wrote all the sections out, and I sat down and I recorded it on my phone. And when I listened back to it, I was like, huh? Like I didn't remember writing it.
Whoa.
Like I don't remember how I wrote it.
Your
I don't
idea is
remember.
just...
It was just, bleh, there it is. Like, and I remember sitting there and I listened to it again and I just started weeping. Like, and I was sitting there and I was crying because I felt like Grandma was in the house.
Yeah.
And it was weird. It was like the weirdest experience. Like, because I'd never written anything like that.
No.
Like that style of music. I had never played that style of music. It's very old-timey, very, not ragtime, but like.
Definitely has that 1920s
Yes.
quality to it.
And like, my grandma was like one of my earliest, memories of music.
Absolutely.
And when I sat down at the piano, that's what happened. And that song came out. And that's why the song is called Wurlitzer Millie. Because it's after, my grandma. And it was such a weird experience. Like when you feel someone in the room with you and you don't know what
that means.
Yes. Oh, that was my first. I'm just like, it makes me want to puke. Like,
it gets overwhelming because you get in that space where like especially if there's tragedy wrapped around a certain thing. And I'm not saying that with your grandma that's the case,
right?
But like my uncle, tragic death. He died in a car accident, and going to his house, even to this day, there is a feeling that I will never be able to quantify to you, but you have had that same feeling that you experience in other situations such as this. So that opens it up for you. And so is this what you would consider the first song you wrote for album 2?
Yes, it's the only song I brought to the second album.
Oh, interesting.
Because I had written some other songs at that point that I wasn't sure if I wanted to bring to the band or not, or if I wanted to do
solo stuff,
nonsense. But this song needed more instruments. It needed the pep. It needed the liveliness of it.
Yeah.
And when I brought it to the guys and I played it for them, like, we just started arranging it. And we just started working on it. And when we brought it into the studio, I remember the take that we did, because it was drums, bass, piano, and acoustic guitar. And we all were in our separate corners of the studio. And I remember playing it that day the same way that I played it the first time I played it on the Wurlitzer.
Ooh, spooky.
Like, and we had done a couple takes at that point, and like the last take we did, like, it just clicked.
Is there any part of you that wishes it would have been recorded on the Wurlitzer?
Oh my God.
Because I think that would have been like the ultimate.
I would love to do that someday. I mean, I'll probably at some point do that.
Go back.
I'm just going to hijack the piano for a day and just make a video.
Totally. No, do it,
Hell,
please.
I'll do it today.
There you go. Sure. Why not?
I'm in town. But that was like my first out-of-body writing experience that I don't really remember.
It just happened. That's great, and I say that's great.
It's scary too, though.
It is in a little bit. It's scary, but it's almost like in some way you have to feel a lot of comfort to that. That like it just kind of like all came together like that. You had this moment. Yep. There was, and it was the perfect moment.
Yep.
We weren't here. You had this opportunity. It calls to you, and the next thing you know, you have this song.
And you guys came back like 20 minutes later.
Ridiculous. I remember you and Sarah had a long conversation. I don't remember what I did.
I didn't play it for her.
No, but you talked to her about it, right?
I showed her. I'm just like, yeah, I just wrote a song. Like,
what?
Like, you guys left and like I just wrote a song. Like,
I'm not sure what's happening.
I don't know, because like the house was quiet. Like, it was just like me, and I had never
summer, winter,
since
fall.
When was it? I think it was in November. It was like October or November.
Okay,
I have it written down somewhere.
Good.
I am quite the list maker when it comes to dates.
You want to make sure to have, yeah, absolutely.
Because I'll remember exactly the point in my life where I was at. But I had never been in this house by myself since Grandma and Grandpa died.
Oh.
Right? Oh. So you guys had just moved in, really.
Oh, so David was here.
I think
a little bit.
David, I think, was living here. He might have been at work or something, but no one was home.
Yeah.
And I was in town, and like I had never been in this house by myself since then, since they passed. And like I think that's ridiculous that that's what happened when it did.
Yeah, it was just like you can't even make that up.
Grandma was like, she would brag about us, and like she was like our biggest supporter at that time.
Totally.
What we would do, she when her friends would come, she's like, oh, you got to listen to my granddaughter sing. Like she sang this for school. Let me put it on the CD player. I'm going to play this for you. And like she would brag about us all the time, and like she was like one of my first influences. Like she was very,
She fostered your dreams.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's like when she died, it was like I lost that cheerleader.
Totally.
And so when I wrote that song, it was just like she was coming back. She's just like, just do the thing. Like
you got it.
Like you can do it. So every time we play that song, it's just like my favorite song.
Oh, well, the really good thing about that is that it brings out a lot of the importance of her as a person, but bigger than that, and this is the really cool thing, is that I'm kind of like this. I would rather bring one dope ass song to the table and like have it be the thing that I'm most proud of than like 15 okay songs. Right. So when you wrote this, it just hits you and you're like, this is the one. Yep. This is the moment. We're gonna move forward. So on the flip, I'm gonna try to flip the script for you right now.
Flipping
right?
the script.
So you were doing some things during the podcast that I briefly brought up, and it's you haven't done it like you haven't went hardcore into it, but you do voices.
I do a little bit,
and
I'm a weird kid,
but we haven't. But see, while you've been doing the Devilish Winks thing, you also took a new journey that we haven't even touched on, and that's Second City.
True.
And that is, to me, Second City is the hollow, like the
that was totally different.
I mean, you're standing on the hallowed grounds of like legends,
like, basically, I'm in this band, and I started to think that I wanted to pursue voice acting.
Yeah.
And that's because, growing up, I watched cartoons my entire life. And that's.
Of course, in your household, you watched cartoons.
Of course.
Your dad loves Rugrats and stuff.
Like, David and Sarah did the video game thing, and I went the cartoon route. Like,
hey,
that was my
kid.
Life, right?
God, and when you were growing up, some of the absolute golden age of cartoons.
Golden age, 90s, man. Like
Hey Arnold and
like my Rugrats and my Ren and Stimpy,
Rocko's Modern Life,
all of them. Oh. But like, what was funny? So Beavis and Butthead, right?
Totally.
Mom didn't want me watching Beavis and Butthead. I was a kid. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what all the innuendos were about.
You go back and watch those episodes now, and you're like,
Dad would let me watch it because it was funny, and I could imitate Beavis and Butthead's voice.
Yeah.
And, as a little kid, hearing a little kid, ask for TP for their bunghole, like, it's funny.
It's hilarious,
right?
Absolutely.
So I always did that as a kid, and I was just like this weird creature growing up that just talked in all these funny accents and like did all these weird voices and like
plus of course doing theater you have to take on particular roles and maybe change your tone and
doing a British accent or Southern accent, whatever. I was trained to do weird things with my voice, but everyone growing up was just like, oh, Sandy, you should be a cartoon character. You should grow up and be a cartoon character. And I said, well, yeah, that'd be freaking sweet. So I look into Second City and I saw that they had a voice acting class. But in order to take that class, you had to take prerequisite type of classes.
Okay.
So I had to take the entry-level improv classes, which I did. I completed them. And then I took the voice acting class and I didn't really like it. It was weird.
Really?
It was different because to get to the point of being a cartoon character, you have to basically do all of the little voice acting things, right?
Oh yeah.
And it seemed like way too daunting of a path to take.
It was like starting over.
It was like basically my instructor at that class said, if you're not doing like 20 auditions a week, you're not going to get a job in this field.
Whoa.
And that was like day one of that class. And I was just like, okay, cool. So I'm just going to make it through these 6 weeks and, I'm just going to pass.
Can I just get my money back now on day one? Like, can I just...
Oh, but it was really cool though, because I learned microphone techniques in this class. We got to go to a studio downtown and we were handed little scripts and we got to record little commercial bits. I have my
demo
CD
reel
track
or whatever.
of it.
Yeah.
And the one that I remember the most was when I got to do, in the class itself, we did video game voice acting.
That's hilarious.
Right? And we were given like these little phrases that you would hear in video game type of characters, and it's like, you must cross the field and fetch me some water, like, and you had to like make choices as the actor to choose what voice. Like, okay, this is set in like a Viking era, what would you sound like as a Viking, like type of nonsense. And like it really made me open up like in terms of how I read stuff. Because the way they present the material to you, it's like, here's this script and you make all of the choices. It's not like, here's this script, these are your choices.
Who do you sound like here?
Right. It's like you go to audition for something, you make a choice, and if it's not the right choice, okay, sorry, you don't get the job. So it just seemed really daunting to even like try to do that. But when I was taking the improv classes and stuff, that training I had, like with making my silly voices and like learning these cool
techniques,
ways to, I don't know,
manipulating your voice,
it helped me create cool characters in my scenes, because I could change my voice at the drop of a hat. Like I can do my Midwestern accent, I can do my Canadian accent. It's like we could have done the whole podcast as my Minnesotan woman.
Oh my god, that's one of my favorites. You do that all the time.
It's my favorite because we can just talk real quiet together.
It's creeping me out. It's
awesome.
It's
fun.
It is fun.
But that's, I don't know. And I never really pursued it. But I started doing musical improv at Second City, which was totally different.
Some cool stuff came from that.
Really cool stuff. I started music directing. Yeah. So I kind of did like the Laura Hall on Whose Line type of thing. I was like a little piano player in the corner. And I actually composed my first musical through the work I was getting. Yeah. I entered a festival, and this girl approached me about writing the music for her show. And totally different ballpark writing a musical, guys, in case you didn't know. It was so challenging because I had to arrange all of the vocal parts, and I had to learn how to teach those vocal parts. And I had to revisit all of the things I learned in high school in choir, basically. No. Like, and it was so weird. It was just
back to muscle memory.
I'm like, what? But what I took from doing all those music directing things, like I learned quick editing and quick arranging.
Ooh.
Because pretty much if you sign on to music direct for a show, they're either giving you lyrics to a funny song that they've written, and you're supposed to compose the music for it. Or, you have to help in that process.
Or they're humming out a melody to you.
Right.
And saying,
or they say, I think this song kind of sounds like this. Right. And then you do the magic and you write the song.
The first musical that you did was the food one that we went to? The first food one? Because you did 2 food things, right? For 773 stage?
What was it? Oh, that was
Dark Side of the Spoon or something.
I had done a couple of shows at that point, but it was Cholesterol, and then Love in the Time of Cholesterol.
Yes,
those were 2 of my favorite shows, honestly.
Agreed.
It was really fun.
Come on, food based and such songs.
Yes. Let's see, where was my train of thought taking me?
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you thinking about
okay.
that. We were just overall kind of discussing.
But, I remember. So when you sign on to do these shows, like you're just given lyrics and you write a song, what you hear, I guess. Either they give you the melody idea, or you just have to figure
it out.
Right?
What sounds good?
You can choose any style you want. Whatever. And they may say, can you write this in like a ragtimey feel, or can you write this as like a pop ballad, or like an R&B love song, like they give you ideas of what
that's
they think.
That's kind of cool though, because then
be.
You get to kind of like take over and go, well, what if I wrote an R&B song? What would that be like? But what about these ridiculous lyrics that an R&B song wouldn't have?
It trained me to start hearing things in different styles, which I was very, cookie cutter. I did only a few styles.
Yep.
I knew how to play church music, and I knew how to write the songs that I wrote, which were just piano jibber jabber. Like I had never written in a style, like given an idea and say, okay, you have to write blues.
Oh my
God.
You have to write doom metal. I would laugh so hard if you wrote a doom metal song.
So, you're given these songs, and you're asked to arrange them, and like, they may not like it. And tracking back to my ability to not really take criticism well,
Uh-oh.
you have to quick edit these songs like on the fly, basically.
Like, oh.
You have a day because
shit.
you're on a timeline. Like you have, 4 weeks of rehearsal, or you have 8 weeks of rehearsal to teach these comedians how to sing these songs and like get them, prepared enough so they can do their choreography. It's like, if I'm not the first thing done, like that holds up the process, So you have the pressure of like finalizing these songs and finalizing the harmonies and getting them taught. And if you don't deliver, like if you don't write something they like they could just find a new music director. They're
Hey,
like, sorry,
sorry.
like your music, I don't know, like it's not working.
It wasn't
like
matching.
I had never gotten, fired from a show or anything.
Of course not.
But like there was one show I remember I rewrote a song 4 or 5 times. And I'm sure there are music directors that have rewritten and revised and all of those things hundreds of times. Yes.
Absolutely.
Like sometimes it works first thing you write and it's good. Other times it takes like way longer to find your idea and like set it in stone. So it like basically taught me how to quick arrange things. And playing for musical improv is basically you just write the song as you go. And you have to you have to develop the structure as you're playing.
Oh boy.
And you're relying on the musical improvisers on stage and what they're setting up. It's a very tag team effort.
Kind of a give and take.
You give them the style, and then they deliver the words.
Oh, shit.
So, it's back and forth. And, they may make a different choice that makes me do a different choice, So it's like you're arranging music on the spot when you're music directing.
That's almost got to be...
It was fun.
And kind of dangerous, right? Because you get kind of like addicted to that style of just like, whatever,
Right.
I can fucking make it up on the fly. It doesn't matter.
Right. It's like as long as you have the theory in your head and you know how to key change, or like, okay, I'm playing in the key of G. These are the chords I can play. And you just kind of you develop your chord patterns in your head. But I just at a certain point I started overbooking myself as a music director and I got really burnt out.
You had too much on the plate.
Because at that time I think I had lost my job and I was unemployed for like 9 months.
Oh.
So I was unemployed. I was taking on these gigs that weren't, high paying.
Money's money.
Gigs, like I took what I could take.
Totally.
And I said yes to everything that year. And by the end of it, I was so burnt out. Like I don't even remember the last couple shows I did.
Wow.
Because I was so
You were just
mentally
doing
drained. It was just like I was a machine and I was just learning these songs and writing these songs and doing it for everyone else but me. And I had to like hit the pause button and be like, okay, because I was still in the band.
Yeah.
I was still doing that. I was unemployed and I was overbooking myself with these shows. And I didn't know what it felt like to hustle like that at that point.
And that is the hustle.
It was my first big challenge in terms of scheduling myself.
And learning how to survive in that
Right.
environment. You're in Chicago and it's the sink or swim.
Yeah. So basically, like I just quit. I quit comedy. I quit music directing. I quit taking classes. Because at that point, I'd done the full improv program at Second City. I took like comedic songwriting and I had gone through almost half of the music conservatory there.
Damn.
And my brain just
Snapped. Weird. That was good.
It did. Like I got to that breaking point where I wasn't even enjoying doing the work anymore.
It was just work.
It wasn't as exciting anymore. It was just like, okay, this is giving me anxiety. I have to step back and like look at what I actually want to accomplish with my music, because I was spending so much time writing music for other people that I had written nothing that year for myself.
Bottles up.
And I would get frustrated because I would go, into my practice room at home and I'd sit down and I would, toy around with covers but I never started writing my own shit again. Like I basically had those songs I brought to the Devilish Winks. I stopped writing, started doing Second City and doing that whole gambit. And like, I got to the tipping point and I said, oh, okay.
Yet again,
another
a choice.
Decision.
Yeah. The road forks yet again. And I think at this point, you've kind of learned, too, that just because right now you decided that the comedy and the Second City thing isn't your choice, doesn't mean you can't go back to it, because now it's in your skill set.
I have my another bag of tricks. Like, and people still contact me to music direct shows. Like, and I recently finally got back into it with my friend Kelly. She wrote and performed an entire solo show, and
cool.
I composed the music for that. And it felt really good to get back into it. Like, not that I'm, diving back in.
It wasn't like you were taking on a million things anymore.
I had to have the right show to come back to, and getting to work with Kelly and the director, Jonold, again, it was the perfect fit at the time, and it filled a little void that I was missing for a minute. But I basically just, like, when I stopped music directing, I just cut it all out. All of it. I didn't go to shows. I stopped, like, seeing people. I didn't go to class anymore. And it was just like an entire world of mine was shut off. And I did it to myself, Like,
but it was because you burn out. And even seeing those people could open up, hey, do you want to do this show?
Right. And, when I bump into people, I'm just like, it's wonderful to see them again.
Absolutely.
And I see what they're doing, and they're still doing shows, and they're being
Killing
successful. And it's great to see what they're doing now. And a part of me still misses it and being a part of that community.
But now you can be a little more choosy, and if there's something that comes along that you really believe in, you can do it, and guess what that's going to be? That's going to be a passion project for you that gives you an opportunity to shine versus putting out, and this goes back to the one song versus 5 songs on the album. Better to bring your best effort than to make half-assed efforts across the board. It just
whole-ass one thing, don't half-ass 80 things, right?
That's perfect. Yes, absolutely.
So it's like when I stopped music directing, I literally took like an entire month off.
Holy shit.
And I had just started a new serving job, and I was like, okay, just get back into work, focus on the band, and just chill for a minute.
Is this your current gig?
Yeah, I'm still same
Sure.
restaurant.
Cool.
Little breakfast joint. It's wonderful.
Yes, it is. That waffle that I had, oh my God.
Great.
I still have the picture in my phone.
It's off the menu now, but I know it's gone. Sad day. Regardless. So I stopped music directing, and literally in 6 months, I wrote 4 new songs.
Damn.
And in the grand scheme of things, doesn't seem like a lot if you're a songwriter, but when you haven't written anything of your own in the longest time,
even getting one song out can be a task.
And I just had one of those giant brain dumps where everything that had been bottled up in my life up until that point, just there it is. Like,
and now you feel a little refreshed, obviously, because you've gotten that out of you.
Yes, and it was different. It wasn't anything I'd written before, and it was different energy,
refreshing.
And that's those songs, I now am on a bank of like 12 or 13 new songs that I'm just kind of, I'm building my list of solo songs that I'm eventually going to release as, my own solo adventure.
Hell yeah.
And I'm working on those right now.
I still have a beautiful idea that you should do at some point, and that's the full Carole King album.
I have learned half of the Tapestry album right now. Neil and I are kind of tackling that because he's the James Taylor to my Carole King.
100%.
100%.
He's also...
Even when I look at pictures of Carole King and James Taylor from, like, back in the day, it's us. It's literally us. Like...
Neil kind of looks like Jason Lee / Dave Grohl. And I will never not tell him that all the time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Because it's just like... The first time I saw him was the Tonic Room show. You know? And it would just... as soon as you guys were done playing, I followed him towards the back, and I tapped him, and I was like, hey, man... I'm sure you get this every day of your entire fucking life. But do you know you look kind of like Jason Lee and also like Dave Grohl?
Oh my God.
And he just kind of giggled and went, yeah. And then like that was the first exchange we had. So he is definitely a just very important part of what you can do.
Yes.
And the crazy thing is really, and this is something you guys probably haven't necessarily explored yet, but like, what you're doing now musically is only the very small tip of the iceberg. Once you branch even further out and start really piecing together further ideas, once this has been a 10-year venture or whatever, you guys are going to be able to create things that you'd look back on your first album and go, that was funny.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when we did that we were kids then, that was great. And then you look at this other thing and you're like, I can't believe we made this.
It was fate that he kind of came into my life right when I got out of school, and like, the Devilish Wings have like shaped me for what
and you
I'm
shaped them
becoming.
too. I mean, as much as you were the rookie and the green kid coming in, by the time the first album is done, you did so much for that band, not just musically, because also artistically speaking, you did the art for both albums, right?
Yes. I hand painted everything.
That's ridiculous.
On the first album, like the inside panels, we hand typed like on the computer and Photoshop that. But on the second album, everything is hand painted and hand drawn.
Wow.
And it's in my head, like they all incorporate, all of the designs incorporate into one another, and it all tells one giant weird story. But I already see in my head the other two albums that
next step.
I feel like the next album we release, we jokingly say we're going to do a double LP the next time because we have enough music backlogged at this point.
Why not?
You know, between the thousands of songs that Neil has in his bank and I've got new songs, like
not a lot of bands, and I want you to really think about this, not a lot of bands are not only talented enough but confident enough to release a double LP. So if you guys think you can do it
would be so fun.
Just do it.
We'll see
if
how
it happens,
that ball gets rolling. But now that the second album's done, we can finally start arranging new songs because we haven't really arranged anything new since
you started working on the
we
second
started
album.
arranging the second album,
Yep.
and those are done. We're performing them. We play them all the time. But now we need to start going into the next phase of new tunes.
So I'm going to ask a question on the second album.
Yes.
You said it kind of tells one overarching story. Does that mean it's thematically like a concept album intentionally or not? Or is it just it has a lot of themes?
It's more like every song is its own little world. And that's basically where the name of the band came. The Devilish Winks are the songs themselves. Every song is a wink in time. It's its own little flicker, its own little, whatever
God
you want to
damn it,
say,
that's
right?
so clever.
So it's like we're not just one genre. We're not just folk music. We're not just metal. We're not
can
just
do anything.
this. But somehow it all works. And every song is its own, little universe. And eventually it would be cool to write a concept album together because we haven't done that. Only one song on the second album, the band fully arranged together, like in the room, like from nothing. Like
Instead
it just
of it
started
being an
with
idea from
just
somebody.
started with a drum beat. Then I started singing over it, and then we started. It was just one of those. It's little songs that just happened.
Totally.
We're like, oh, we just wrote a song together, guys. Like
More
hey.
of this. More of this.
We arranged things together, but predominantly it was like Neil would bring songs or I would bring songs. Our bassist Rudy brought some songs to the second album, and and it'll continue to be that type of process. But I'll be really interested to see what we do on this next album because we haven't done a concept album.
The doors
like that,
are open at this point.
But yeah, every song is its own little story, its own little wink, its own little type of thing.
That's awesome. I did not know that that's where the name came from or that was the meaning behind it. So that's really cool. And actually, I was under the misconception that was your name. And the reason that I came up that I thought that, and let me explain, is because by the time you guys were at the point where you were doing your first shows, it was almost about the time that the album was getting ready to launch, right? So I'm seeing your art. Say the Devilish Winks, and you have this concept that you drew, and in my mind, I just went, "It's Sandy's fucking idea. It's great. I love it."
No,
I think
the artwork was my idea.
Well, totally. But I also thought the name came with that.
Yeah,
like you were just like,
funny,
"The Devilish Winks is cool."
I remember being in the studio while we were doing the first album, and I hadn't done any of the artwork yet. So we were recording the album. I kind of had one painting done for it, the green eyeball, right?
That was your first flyer.
But the album cover, I had the idea while I was going to the bathroom on our break of tracking in the studio of what the album cover was going to look like.
Everybody in I form.
Because when you do your best thinking on the toilet or in the shower and you have these weird
It just
ideas,
hits you and you're like, oh, fuck, why did I think of that before?
I came out of the bathroom and I went and I sat down on the couch and I started doodling and I drew out the idea and I said, Neil, I'm going to turn us into eyeballs.
That was it.
And then I created all the band members on the album as a different little eyeball.
And
that was it. So, thanks to the bathroom at Uptown for the album cover idea.
That was just that was more like a moment in time. Idea was
I was thinking, I don't know.
it was there.
But yeah, so we'll eventually start working on our third album, fourth album, whatever you want to call it, and
Excellent. And
eventually that'll happen.
And you're obviously playing gigs around.
Yeah.
Hard to schedule with a lot of people in a band.
It is. But we play regularly at like the Elbow Room, Martyrs. We've got a show at the Burlington coming up on February 9th.
Yeah.
And eventually, I believe in March, we're trying to book our release show at Martyrs. We did our first release show there, so we're going back to our roots and playing there again for our second release.
So the album isn't officially out.
Yes.
Physically.
It is physically out. You can get it on iTunes, Google Play, all of digital platforms.
Cool.
But you can download it on iTunes and that type of stuff. But we do have the physical CDs for sale off our website.
I have to buy one.
But go to thedevilishwinks.com and you can buy our CD and get my artwork. But yeah, we'll see what happens next.
Cool. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're nearing the 2:00 time, and I know you have some things to do.
Yes.
So before we get out of here, we'll do the plugs for the show. As always, folks can check out the Voice of Survival podcast on the Journey into Comics network at journeyintocomics.com. On all the different podcasting platforms, whether it's iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music. We are now on Spotify. That's a big one for us. Go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Journey into Comics. Right now we're doing the Road to Infinity War. That's going to take you through the MCU, all 18 movies leading up to the Infinity War release in May. Sandy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This was super fun.
It was an absolute blast, and I think that really we could bring you back because I think there's a lot more still to tell within the story.
Yes.
We've really only hit the tip of the iceberg, as I referenced that earlier. But thank you so much for coming on. What we're going to do is now we're going to close the show with your track, Wurlitz or Millie.
Yes.
So before we do that, we'll get out of here. I've been Nate.
This is Sandy.
And thank you guys so much for listening. Later.